Welcome back, my friends, to the Paranormal M channel. It's me again. I love being here and sharing my paranormal experiences with you. Thank you so much for sending in all of your own stories. And don't forget to drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Thanks for always supporting the channel and diving into these paranormal experiences together with me. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. So, I'm 19, and I still live at home in a pretty strict Christian household. My parents, Evelyn and Jonah, are also the kind of people who take spiritual stuff seriously. Like, seriously. They grew up with a mix of cultural traditions and superstitions, and my mom's faith is intense in a way that's hard to explain unless you've seen it up close. We moved into this place a little over 3 years ago. It's an older, rural property. Quiet roads, long stretches of trees, that kind of vibe. The house has been standing since the late 70s, but it's had renovations over the years. From the outside, it looks normal. Inside too, honestly. It doesn't scream creepy the way movies make haunted houses look. Here's the thing though. My mom has had experiences that made her very alert to the spiritual side of life. She's prayed over people before in ways that looked a lot like deliverance. She even did it for my dad once, years ago, when he was going through this dark, strange period. And she's told us stories, quietly, not dramatically, about people targeting her with things that felt like witchcraft. There was even a time she got sick in a way doctors couldn't properly explain. She still isn't fully well, and I think that's part of why our whole family has always been on edge about this sort of thing. And me? I've always felt like I pick up on things more than everyone else. Growing up, I'd get these heavy feelings in certain places, like walking into a room and instantly knowing something was off. Sometimes I'd dream things that felt like warnings. Not cute little symbolic dreams either. More like messages you wake up from with your heart racing, like your body understood it before your brain did. I don't walk around telling people I see spirits or anything, because I know how that sounds. But I will say this. I've had enough weird moments to not brush it off completely. That's why this house has messed with me so much. Because when we first moved in, I felt nothing. Nothing unusual. No pressure in the air, no weird chill, no sense of being watched. I remember thinking, okay, maybe we finally found a place that's peaceful. And then, after a few months, the nightmares started. I almost never get nightmares, so it stood out immediately. It was always the same theme. Something chasing me, something observing me, something I couldn't fully see but could feel. I'd wake up exhausted, like I'd been running all night. And around that same time, little things started happening in the house. Small sounds that didn't have a source. Footsteps in the hallway when everyone was asleep. Soft knocks that seemed to come from inside the walls. The kind of noises that are easy to explain away once, but not when they keep repeating. At first, my younger brother and I told Mum. She didn't laugh. She didn't call us dramatic. She just got this serious look, like she'd been expecting it, and she prayed through the whole house. Doors, windows, corners, everything. After that, it stopped. For a while. Then it would come back. That's been the cycle ever since. The dreams return, the noises start up. We tell Mum, she prays, it calms down. And then weeks later, sometimes months later, it starts all over again. Like something is testing the boundaries. Like it backs off, then creeps right back in. And the weirdest part, every time it's happening, it feels like the house drains us. Recently, it's gotten worse. My sister, Mara, has always been the least spiritual out of all of us. She's the practical one, the one who rolls her eyes a little, the one who would normally say, "It's probably the wind." So when she started telling me she'd been having dreams too, I didn't even know what to say. Because her dreams weren't random. They lined up with what was happening in the house. And the sounds, they're not subtle anymore. The small knocking turned into loud, sharp knocks that seemed to travel, Like they start at one window, then shift to another door, then pop up on a wall down the hallway. Sometimes it sounds like someone is walking through the house at night, slow and deliberate, and it'll stop right outside my bedroom door like whoever, or whatever, is standing there is deciding whether to come in. And lately, it's been mostly my room. I'll hear banging that starts low on the wall, then moves upward into the ceiling, like it's circling the perimeter above me, over and over. Then it'll fade, and a few minutes later it'll happen again, like it's making loops. I've tried everything to rationalize it: pipes, animals, the house settling, but it doesn't behave like normal house noises. It feels intentional. I still haven't seen a full apparition, nothing like a figure in the doorway or a face in the mirror, but I've seen shadows. You know when you catch something out of the corner of your eye and you turn fast, expecting to see a person? That, except there's no person. Just this quick movement slipping out of view. It happens enough that I'm not comfortable calling it my imagination anymore. And then tonight happened. Tonight is what finally pushed me from I'm unsettled to I'm done. I heard the banging start up again, same pattern. So I got up and went into Mara's room because I just needed a break. Her room is right beside mine, and I figured if anything happened, at least I wouldn't be alone. I stayed there for a while, trying to calm down, scrolling on my phone, pretending I wasn't listening. Eventually, I felt a little braver, like, okay, it's fine. Go back to your room. You're overreacting. So I walked back to my door. And outside my room, on the walls near the frame, along the ceiling line in the hallway right by my door, even clustered around the top corner, there were flies. A lot of them. Not like one or two that got in. I mean scattered in a way that looked wrong, like they'd gathered there. And the thing is, it's been cold lately. We haven't had flies in the house at all. Not in the kitchen, not by windows, not anywhere. But suddenly there's a whole group of them hovering around my room like it's the only warm, alive place in the entire house. I just stood there staring, feeling my stomach drop. And yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I've watched enough spooky stuff online to know flies get mentioned a lot around dark energy, decay, that kind of thing. Normally, I'd laugh at myself for even thinking that. But when you've been dealing with nightmares, footsteps, banging, and shadow movement for years, a swarm of flies outside your bedroom doesn't feel like a random coincidence. It feels like a sign. And I'm not proud of how long it took me to get genuinely scared. I think I've been trying so hard not to be that person who blames everything on the paranormal that I kept swallowing my instincts. But I'm exhausted. I haven't been sleeping properly for days. It's messing with my work, my mood, my focus, everything. I feel like I'm living in this constant state of tension, waiting for the next sound. And the worst thought I can't shake is this. What if it escalates? What if it stops being knocks and shadows and turns into something physical? And right now, I don't. I've never really told anyone this out loud, not all the way through anyway. It's one of those things I keep tucked behind my ribs, because the second I pull it out, I can feel it again. And I haven't gone back to the place where it happened, not once. So, a couple years ago, 2021, late fall, I had just started seeing this girl named Mara. It was new. Like that weird in-between where you're not sure if you're just talking, or if you're already quietly building a life together without meaning to. We were still learning each other's coffee orders, you know? Less than a month into us being in each other's orbit, Mara got a call at work. I remember the way her face changed, like all the blood in her skin decided to leave at the same time. It was her best friend, Rowan, sobbing so hard she could barely get words out. Mara didn't even clock out properly. She just left. She drove to where Rowan said she was, And what she found? God, I still don't have clean language for it. Rowan had tried to end her life. Mara was the first one there. She did CPR until the paramedics arrived, hands shaking, voice breaking, just refusing to stop. But a day later, maybe two, the family made the decision to take Rowan off life support, and she passed. I didn't know all the details at the time, not like that. I just knew Mara was suddenly carrying something massive, and I didn't want her to carry it alone. Fast forward to last summer, like mid-July of 2023. Mara and I were out driving with the windows down, just floating through the day. Warm sun, music turned up, stupid jokes, laughing so hard my stomach hurt. The kind of day that feels like it's healing you without making a big deal about it. And then it happened. I know that sounds dramatic, like I'm trying to make it a movie moment, but it was exactly that sharp. 1 second I was fine. The next second it was like something inside me slammed on the brakes. We were on these back roads, ones I didn't recognize. There was this long fence running along the right side, the kind you see around old property lines. And when the fence ended, I swear to you, it felt like I drove straight into a wall, except nothing touched the car. My chest tightened so fast I thought I was choking. My hands went cold. It was panic, but it was also deeper than panic. Like grief that didn't belong to me, like a sudden drop into heavy, thick sadness. My throat closed up, and I started crying before I even understood why. Silent at first, then not so silent. Mara asked, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And I tried to answer. I really did. But all I could force out was, "I want to leave." That was it. That's all I had. So we turned around. And here's the part that messes with me the most. The farther we drove away from that spot, the more my body let go. Like the pressure was tied to the land itself. My breathing came back in pieces. The crying slowed down, but the air in the car stayed different. We went quiet. Even the music felt wrong. The rest of that day was like walking around with bruised lungs. A couple days later, Mara brought it up again. She asked me, gently, "Do you know where we were when you started freaking out?" And I laughed a little, because I honestly didn't. I told her, "No, how would I know? I've never been down that road in my life." Then she said, "That's where I found Rowan." And I felt my whole body go still. Not fear this time, just that slow, sinking understanding. Like my nervous system had recognized something before my mind could catch up. Like my body knew a story my brain hadn't been told. I haven't gone back since. Mara hasn't either. Part of me is curious, in this morbid science experiment way. Like, would it happen again? Was it some random fluke? Bad timing? A panic attack I didn't see coming? But another part of me, honestly, the louder part, doesn't want to test it. I don't want to feel that kind of sadness again. It wasn't just, I'm upset. It was dread. It was grief with teeth. And lately, I don't know. This week has felt off in general. My anxiety has been louder than it should be, even with my meds. I've spaced out a few times, had these vivid nightmares, and now my mind keeps circling back to that day like it's trying to solve it. Like if I can explain it, it won't haunt me. I'm in my 20s. I live out in a rural part of the South. Quiet roads, long stretches of nothing. The kind of places where your thoughts get really loud. I'm not religious, but I do believe there are things we don't understand. I've never had some big paranormal moment or anything, but I have had those random chills in certain places, like your body perks up for no obvious reason. Still, nothing has ever hit me like that road did. Nothing. And what really gets me is the timing, because it was close to a year after Rowan died. Not exact, but close enough that it makes you wonder if dates leave fingerprints. I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly. Maybe I just needed to finally say it out loud to someone, because I've been carrying it quietly, and quiet things have a way of growing. And I keep thinking, maybe my body was responding to grief that had soaked into a place. Or maybe it was empathy, or coincidence, or stress finding a door to come through. Or maybe I'm just a person who drove down the wrong road on the wrong day, and my nervous system did what nervous systems do. I just know it felt real, and I know I never want to feel it again. Hey, so I want to tell you about something that happened on this little family outing that honestly still gives me chills in the best way. A few of us went to this gimmicky tourist spot in Des Moines called the Cabinet of Echoes. You know the type. Old creaky building, dim lighting, haunted objects behind glass, spooky labels with dramatic backstories. It's the kind of place my brain normally files under fun but fake. But this time, something felt different. We paid a little extra to borrow one of those EMF readers, the handheld gadget that flashes and beeps when it picks up electromagnetic activity. I've always been skeptical of those because there are a million boring reasons they can spike. And at first, that's exactly what it was. A few little blips near some creepy porcelain dolls, nothing that made me pause. Then we walked past this disturbing carnival poster painting, like a grinning jester or something, and the EMF reader absolutely lost its mind. I mean, bright flashing, frantic beeping, constant. It happened over and over in the exact same spot. So right away we're like, okay, junction box, wiring, a speaker, a hidden effect. The logical part of my brain was actually relieved because it was so obvious. We decided to prove it. So we go downstairs into the basement, thinking we'll find a bunch of thick wiring running underneath that wall, and yep, there it was. Conduit, cables, the whole deal. Case closed. We all kind of laughed like, all right, cute trick. But then, we kept walking around down there, just sweeping the EMF reader out of curiosity, and it started pinging near this old wooden display case tucked against a brick wall. And this wasn't near the obvious wiring we'd just found. The basement was barely lit, mostly shadows and that red-tinted glow from this section they jokingly called the Inferno Room, or something equally dramatic. At first we thought, maybe there's another wire behind the bricks. But the reader kept pulling us closer, like it was guiding us to something specific. Inside the cabinet, in the darkest bottom corner, low enough that you had to crouch, there was a doll. Her name on the little card was Maribel. And here's where it got strange. The EMF reader would stay calm until we actually looked at her. Not near her. Not in front of the cabinet. Specifically, when we crouched down, aimed a flashlight at her face, and shined it into her eyes. The second that light hit her eyes, the EMF reader went absolutely wild again. And the moment we looked away, like turned our head even slightly, the beeping would stop. Not gradually, not fading, just off, like a switch. So of course, we're all doing it again and again, because we don't want to convince ourselves of something stupid. Flashlight on her eyes, chaos. Look away, silence. Back to her, chaos. Look away, silence. There were 4 of us witnessing it, and we started getting that weird, quiet feeling people get when they don't want to say the spooky thing out loud, but everyone's thinking it anyway. The little placard said something like, a young girl's spirit was attached to the doll. Some sad, sweet story. Normally I roll my eyes at that stuff, but in the moment it actually made this unsettling kind of emotional sense. Like, if this was all real, it didn't feel angry. It felt needy. like someone desperately trying to be noticed. We eventually said goodbye and went to look at other things, because honestly, we needed to breathe for a second. Before we left the basement, we went back one more time, kind of gently, like, "Hey, we're heading out." The responses were still there, but softer, less intense, like the moment had passed. Then we went upstairs for this sit challenge thing, where a couple of my relatives sat alone in a creepy room for 10 minutes while the rest of us waited outside. While they did that, my brother Eli and I went back down to check on Maribel again. And nothing. The EMF reader barely moved. No chaos. No big reaction. Just normal. So we stood there for a second, almost disappointed, almost relieved. Then we said, "All right, goodbye, Maribel." And the second we said it, like right on top of the last word, the EMF reader spiked one final time. Just one intense flare, like a last little grab at our sleeve. Then it went quiet again. And I know how it sounds. I know. Believe me, I ran through every explanation I could. Wiring, interference, the flashlight itself, our phones, the building, the gadget being cheap, us accidentally standing in the same spot, everything. But the way it responded to eye contact and the light, and then the way it stayed quiet until that last goodbye, it didn't feel random. It felt like we'd stumbled into something we weren't even looking for. And honestly, if the museum moved Maribel upstairs where more people could see her, I kind of think she'd like that. Because whatever that was down in the dark corner, real or not, it felt like someone who didn't want to be forgotten. So, I should probably start by saying this. I grew up pretty religious, but I was also the kind of person who rolled my eyes at ghost stories. Demons, shadows, entities. I'd hear people talk and just assume it was imagination, stress, maybe someone working themselves into a fear spiral. I truly didn't think any of it was real. This was back around 2009, when my grandmother Maribel wasn't doing well. We brought her to stay with us so we could look after her. Most days we also had a caregiver. Her name was Lucia, who helped out for long stretches of the day. I was in university then, and honestly, I barely interacted with Lucia. A quick hello, a polite thank you, that kind of thing. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would have made me think anything unusual was happening in our house. But one night, my mom, Elena, pulled me aside and said, really quietly, like she didn't want to give the words too much power, "Something strange is going on here." Now, my mom has always been sensitive to this kind of thing. She had rough experiences when she was younger, stuff she still won't fully describe. She prays every day. She's deeply faithful. So when she told me she'd been seeing a shadow moving through the house, I wanted to be gentle. But in my head, I was thinking, she's exhausted. She's worried about Grandma. Stress is playing tricks. She described it like this: a dark shape, not a person exactly, more like a presence, darting past doorways, always quick, always just out of reach, like it didn't want to be seen but didn't care if it was noticed. I nodded, tried to reassure her, and then I went back to my life, studying, deadlines, the usual. I really thought that would be the end of it, and then it happened to me. It was a completely normal day. After lunch, I left the kitchen and stepped into this hallway that led to the stairs. That's all it was to me. A hallway. A place you pass through without thinking. I usually walked straight toward the stairs without even looking around. But that day, the second I stepped out, something, call it instinct, call it whatever, made me turn my head the other way. Like my body reacted before my brain could argue. And that's when I saw it. It was the blackest shadow I've ever seen. Not dim corner dark. Not lights are off dark. This was unnatural. Like the absence of light had weight. It was tall, easily over 7 feet, and it didn't walk so much as move. It felt like it was gliding, floating forward, straight toward me. No face, no features, no expression, just a shape, a void. And the strangest part is, it didn't feel angry. It didn't feel threatening in the way horror movies teach you to expect. It felt empty, hopeless, like something that had forgotten what it meant to be alive. It came right up to me, and then, this is the part that still makes my skin tighten when I think about it. It didn't go around me. It went through me, like I wasn't solid, like it wasn't solid, like the world just failed to agree on what was real for a moment, and then it was gone, just vanished. No sound, no wind, no dramatic exit. 1 second it was there, the next second it wasn't. I stood in the hallway, frozen, staring at nothing, trying to force my brain to explain it. I remember my heart was pounding, but I couldn't even move, and all I could think was, that's what Mom meant. Years later, this part is almost worse, because it makes it feel less like a random hallucination and more like a piece of something old. We were talking as a family, just casual conversation. My dad, Raphael, mentioned something I'd never heard before. He used to do contracting work, and he'd been involved in projects around our neighborhood when it was still being developed. There weren't many records, no clear stories, just that it used to connect to something else that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not saying I know what happened there. I don't. I can't prove anything. But I'll tell you this. When I remember that shadow, what stays with me isn't fear. It's the feeling. That heavy, dim, hollow energy. Like despair given a shape. Like for a split second, I brushed up against the kind of loneliness that doesn't even cry anymore. It just empties out. And even now, all these years later, if I'm honest with you, sometimes I can still feel it in that part of the house. Not like it's there all the time. More like the air remembers. Like the hallway kept a stain you can't see. Believe me or don't, I don't blame anyone who thinks this is all in my head. I used to be that person too. But I know what I saw. And I know what it felt like to have something pass straight through me and leave behind a kind of sadness I'd never felt before. So my partner and I moved into the place we live now a little over 5 years ago. It's out on Long Island, in this old colonial that was built back in 1909. Creaky floors, narrow hallways, the kind of house that feels like it's holding on to 100 years of secrets. And from pretty much the moment we unpacked, things started happening. Not every day, not even every month, but enough that it settled into the back of my mind like a splinter. The first time still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. I'd left work early because I was coming down with something. Feverish, that heavy cold feeling where your bones even ache. I went straight upstairs, crawled into bed, and I'd only been lying there a couple minutes when I heard someone coming up the stairs. Not a creak, not the house settling, actual footsteps, clear, deliberate steps. And our staircase is the kind with 2 flights and a little landing in the middle, so you can hear the pattern. Step after step up the first part, then on the landing, then the second set of steps, like whoever it was taking their time. Our bedroom door is right at the top. The steps stop directly outside it. My brain tried to be sensible. It's just Owen. Maybe he came home early. But it didn't line up. He wasn't supposed to be home for at least another hour. And I don't know how to explain this without sounding dramatic, but I knew it wasn't him. Like my body figured it out before my thoughts did. I went completely still. Every sound in the house felt sharp. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and I didn't even want to breathe in case whoever, or whatever, was on the other side could hear me. When Owen actually came home later, I asked him if he'd come in early and maybe gone back out again, because I was trying so hard to make it make sense. He looked at me like I was half joking and half sick delirious and told me no, he'd just gotten home. He didn't really believe me. But then, about a month later, the same thing happened to him. He was home alone, laid down for a nap, and heard the footsteps come up the stairs. First flight, at the landing, second flight, and then stopping right at the top like someone was standing there. That was the first time I saw his face change in that way where you can tell someone's trying not to admit they're scared. After that, he stopped brushing it off. We both started living with this quiet feeling that the house wasn't always empty. A couple years later, we had our baby, our little boy, Miles. One night, I was up feeding him, and back then I used to go downstairs so Owen could sleep. He was back at work, and I was trying to be considerate, you know? So I'm in the living room in this big, soft chair, Miles finally drifting off in my arms, his warm little weight against my chest. And then I hear it again. Footsteps upstairs. Not in the stairwell this time, in the upstairs hallway. Like someone was walking back and forth above me. And what got me was, I hadn't heard our bedroom door open, and that door is old and loud. It sticks. You always hear it. So I just sat there frozen, holding my sleeping baby, staring at the ceiling, listening. About 10 minutes later, Owen actually does get up to use the bathroom, and I call up to him, trying to sound casual even though my voice felt tight, and I asked if he'd been up earlier. And he said, "No, I just woke up now." That was it for me. I never fed Miles downstairs again after that. From that night on, I stayed in our room, even if it meant we both slept less. I just couldn't sit down there alone with that feeling anymore. She lives out of state, and she was so excited to babysit, so Owen and I could finally have a proper date night. It was our first real night out since having Miles, and we kept it simple. Dinner, talking like normal adults again, laughing for the first time in forever. When we got home, my mom looked wrong, like someone had pulled the color out of her face. She told us she'd been sitting in the rocking chair with Miles asleep in her arms, just humming softly, enjoying the quiet, when she heard footsteps outside the bedroom door. And then, 3 loud bangs. Not little knocks, not the house popping. She said it sounded like someone hit the door with their fists, hard, like they were angry. She jumped up immediately, opened the door, because of course she did, she's my mom, and there was nobody there. Nothing. Empty hallway. Quiet house. She said she just stood there holding Miles, listening, waiting for something else to happen. And after that, she didn't want to be alone in the room again. She waited for us to get home like she was counting the minutes. And ever since then, she's been nervous about staying with us. She'll visit, but she'll book a hotel now. She tries to laugh it off, but I can tell she doesn't want to talk about it too much. After that, the really big stuff seemed to fade. We've had little things, sounds that don't fit, the occasional weird chill, that feeling of being watched when you're sure you're alone, but nothing like those nights. Miles is older now, and once in a while he'll say something that makes me pause. Like recently he told me, very casually, that the walls in my room talk. And I tried to keep my face neutral, because I don't want to feed into it or scare him. I told myself it's just toddler imagination, cartoons, dreams, all of that. But still, it stuck with me. And honestly, I'm grateful it's quiet now. I don't want anything in this house, real or imagined, to ever make my son afraid. Even if part of me will always wonder what was walking up those stairs, and why it always stopped right outside the door. Okay, this is going to sound completely unhinged, and I get it. But I'm not telling you this as some spooky campfire flex. I'm telling you because there were other people there. There were moments where it wasn't just in my head. So, quick backstory. I was born in the US, but before that my parents and my 2 older brothers had been bouncing around, mostly between Colombia and Argentina. When we finally settled in the States, We landed in the Maryland suburbs outside DC and rented this older house that had belonged to a Japanese family years earlier. And the neighborhood gossip, always with the neighborhood gossip, was that the father who owned it started struggling mentally after moving in. Eventually, he took his own life. Nobody could ever tell me if it happened inside the house or somewhere else, but either way, the house got a reputation. Apparently, a few families rented it before us, and every single one had something catastrophic happen. Like not, oh, the faucet leaks and the vibes are weird. I mean, life-derailing stuff that made them pack up and leave fast. Then my family moved in. I was barely a toddler. By the time I was 4, that house felt like it had rules I didn't understand. I remember things vividly, sounds, shadows, that feeling you get when you're little and you can tell the air in a room is wrong. And there's another layer to it that's hard to say out loud. My dad started changing in that house. He got paranoid in this way that made our whole family walk on eggshells. There were nights my mom was genuinely afraid he'd hurt her. It was the early 80s. We were Lebanese, and back then, people just didn't call it what it was. They didn't step in. They didn't protect you. You just survived it. And that's when the dreams started. They weren't normal kid dreams. They were the same dream, over and over, like it was on a schedule. In it, I'm running, but it's that awful slow motion running where your legs feel like wet cement. And there's this glowing orb, blue-purple, like a little planet made of light. Sometimes it's in my hand. Sometimes it floats right beside me like it's tethered to me. And I'm terrified because I know I'm being chased. The man chasing me is always the same. Tall, pale, bright blue eyes. Handsome in this weird, unsettling way. Like if you looked too long, you'd feel sick. And his outfit was always the same too. Black brimmed hat, kind of like a fedora. Long black coat, dark suit, all of it. I think he wore gloves, but what I remember most is that I could always see his face. No smile, no anger, no expression at all, just purpose. Like he wasn't hunting me because he hated me. He was hunting me because it was his job. And every time, right before he could grab me, or grab the glowing thing, a woman would appear. Sometimes from behind a tree, sometimes stepping out of a doorway, sometimes getting out of a car like she'd been waiting. She'd call my name, clear as day, and I'd run to her, and the second I reached her, I'd wake up. That dream happened multiple times a week from when I was 4 until I was 9, and then life took this hard left turn. A few months after we got there, I developed something that was maybe arthritis? To this day, I'm not even sure what it was. All I knew was that once a week, I needed an injection. We'd go to a nearby town, mostly Catholic families, and a nurse would give me the shot at her house. The first time my mom and I went, the nurse opened the door and I absolutely lost it. I screamed, "I know you! I know you!" My mom looked horrified. The nurse looked confused. Like, kid, what? Her name was Nadia, and I swear to you, she wasn't similar to the woman in my dreams. She was her. Same face, same voice, same smile, same exact shade of lipstick, like I could have picked it out of a lineup. Even the jewelry, this little gold chain, the way it caught the light, my stomach dropped because I'd seen it 1,000 times in my sleep. For 5 years, several times a week, that woman had been the safe place in my nightmare. And now she was standing in front of me, holding a tray like, "Hi, sweetheart, come on in." For about a month, I saw her every week. Every time, I tried to get answers the only way a 7-year-old can. I'd ask questions sideways. I'd stare too hard. I'd say weird little things like, "Do you know my name?" Or, "Have you ever been in America?" Trying to make her flinch, trying to catch a crack in the mask. But she never gave me anything. She stayed warm, gentle, funny, always smiling at my mom like this was just a silly kid moment, and she'd brush me off in a way that felt intentional, like she understood exactly what I was asking and was choosing not to touch it. Then my treatment ended. We stopped going. I never saw her again. But the dreams didn't stop. She was still there, still saving me right at the end, like she hadn't gone anywhere. And then came my 9th birthday. A couple weeks after I turned 9, my parents and I were driving back to our village from Beirut. I can't tell you how long we were in the car. Wartime driving messes with time, but in my memory, it feels endless, like a whole day stuffed into a single ride. At one point, we stopped at a checkpoint, Syrian soldiers, which was common then. My dad handed over his papers, and I looked out the window to my right. And there he was, the man from my dreams, in real life. Same hat, same long black coat, same shape of his body as he walked, like the dream had stepped through a door and joined the street. He was moving along the side of a building, then he turned a corner, and even that turn looked exaggerated, like his coat flared back in this dramatic sweep, like it was choreographed. I remember grabbing at my mom, panicked, whispering, yelling, "Mom, Mom, that's him! That's the guy from my dreams! I just saw him!" And her reaction was small, like she didn't know what to do with it. A distracted, "Huh, weird." The kind of response adults give when their brains are busy surviving bigger things. But it didn't end there. Later, maybe an hour, maybe more, we reached this lively town, Dur el Chouer. Cobblestone streets, a big fountain in the center, cafes packed with people. It felt loud and bright and normal for the first time in that whole drive. We stopped at a crosswalk. I was sitting on my mom's lap in the front seat because I'd gotten bored in the back and insisted. Classic kid behavior. And then my mom stiffened. A man was walking in front of the car, and he was staring straight at me like I was the only thing in the world. It was him. And my dad, hot-headed, protective, loud, he got out of the car. He started yelling, threatening, doing that whole, "Hey, I'm talking to you, come here" thing. Full volume, full posture, like he could intimidate the universe into behaving. But the man didn't even glance at him. Not once. His eyes stayed on me. Calm, empty, fixed. Then he just walked away. And here's the part that still makes my skin go cold. People tried to stop him. The driver in the car behind us jumped out, and a couple bystanders moved in too. They reached for him, like grabbed his arm, grabbed his shoulder, and the second their hands touched him, they let go. Not like he shoved them, not like he hit them, more like their bodies refused. Like instinct took over and said, "Nope, don't hold on to that." And he kept walking like nothing had happened. After that day, after seeing him that close, after my mom seeing him too, after the whole little scene in the street, I never had the dream again, not once. It was like whatever thread connected us snapped or got cut. And that's it. That's the story. I'm in my 40s now. I've spent years trying to make sense of it. I've asked people who claim they can see things. I've tried to rationalize it. Trauma, stress, war, childhood imagination. I've gone through every explanation I can live with. But I can't explain the nurse. I can't explain the man. I can't explain how real it felt, or why it ended the moment it finally became undeniable. And the part that messes with me the most is this. If it was all just a dream, why did it feel like it had a plan? Like it was leading me somewhere? Because I still don't have answers. I just have the memories, and the fact that I wasn't the only one who saw him. So, I've I've had a lot of strange encounters over the years, but there are three that still sit in my chest when I think about them, like my body remembers before my brain does. The first one happened when my family was house-sitting for a friend. We'd stayed there for a bit during a move, and honestly, the place was already kind of loud at night. Not loud like people talking, more like footsteps that didn't quite have a source. Little thumps and creaks that made you pause and listen. But for a while, it was just background weirdness. Then one day, it had been raining hard for what felt like forever, and my dad, Jerry, was outside checking the foundation and gutters. He called in and asked if I could run down to the basement and make sure the laundry area wasn't leaking. Now, here's the part that makes it worse. It was a small 3-unit building with neighbors on both sides, and the whole place carried this heavy history. A fatal accident in the backyard years ago. A tragedy in one of the units. A baby lost in another not long before we were there. I didn't know all the details at the time, but you could feel that something had happened there, like the walls had soaked it up. So I go inside and immediately, I get that sharp feeling like I'm not supposed to be there. Like I've walked into someone's room without knocking. I try to shrug it off, but the second I reach the top of the basement stairs, the hair on the back of my neck stands straight up. I turn on the lights anyway. I tell myself I'm being dramatic, and I start down. And I swear to you, the air down there felt thick, like walking through a damp, heavy fog. Every step closer to the laundry area made it worse. My stomach tightened. My ears felt pressurized, like before a storm breaks. Then I reached the doorway and looked in, and the far corner of the laundry room wasn't just dark. It was wrong dark. Like the darkness had weight. Like it was pooled there, swallowing up the corner of the room. And then, clear as anything, I heard one word. Run. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't a suggestion. It was loud and sharp, like someone barking it right into my head. I didn't argue. I didn't think. I just moved. I tore up those stairs as fast as my legs could carry me, and I could feel something tracking me along the wall behind me. Like that blackness was crawling after me, chasing me upward. But the second I hit the top step, it stopped. Like it couldn't cross that line. I didn't stand there to test it. I flicked off the lights, bolted out, and didn't go back down there again unless I absolutely had to. That moment stayed with me for a long, long time, because it didn't feel like a spooky story. It felt like a warning. The second one was months later, still in that same general area. It was Halloween night, and I was with my boyfriend at the time, Mason. We drove out to his grandma's place on the reserve because she had a bag of candy and a few things she wanted to send home with him. He said it would take 2 minutes, so I stayed in the car. It wasn't pitch black. There were streetlights around, that weird orange glow they give off. I was sitting in the passenger seat, kind of zoning out, looking through the window, when I noticed a shadow near the edge of the property. At first, it just looked like a tall man standing by a streetlight. Still. Too still. I watched it, thinking, okay, maybe it's someone smoking. Maybe it's just how the light's hitting the grass. And then it dropped. Not like crouched, not like bent down. It dropped onto all fours, fast, unnatural, and then it bolted into the tall grass like an animal. My stomach went cold. I lost sight of it immediately, and then the car started reacting. The back door handle on one side lifted, like someone was about to open it, and then snapped back down. Then the other back door handle did the same thing, then mine. One after another, like something making its way around the car, testing every entry point. I was frozen, like I couldn't even breathe right. I remember staring at my own door handle, waiting for it to lift again. And right then, the house door opened. Mason came stepping out, candy in hand, and the shadow, wherever it was, moved back into that long grass at the corner like it was retreating. That one stuck with me because it felt deliberate, like it knew I was alone and wanted me to know it knew. The third experience happened in a different town in the summer when I was helping my mom, Elena, at an antique shop. We were sorting through boxes from a new haul, dust everywhere, that old paper smell, the usual. And I found this small glass jar. Nothing huge or expensive looking, just a little jar with an ornate silver lid. Inside was this gray, dusty stuff, and these tiny blue-purple flower buds mixed in. When I cracked it open, there was the faintest, sweet smell, like dried wildflowers. And the second I touched it, something in me went, "Oh," like it was calling my name. I tried to ignore it. I left it at the store for a few days, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept getting this persistent thought, bring it home. Not, it would be nice to have, more like a tug, a pull. So I did. I set it on my desk and went about my night. Late evening, everyone in the house asleep. I was in my bedroom in a recliner, playing a game, just relaxing. And then my curtain snapped to one side, hard. My door was closed. The window was closed. No fan, no draft, nothing. I stared at it, trying to rationalize. And that's when I started noticing movement in the room, just at the edges. The curtain kept shifting. Small sounds started up. Floorboards creaking like someone was pacing behind my chair. Then it got worse. The back of my chair started jerking, like it was being hit from behind. Not bumped, punched. Over and over, like a fist slamming into the chair and knocking into my back. I started praying, out loud, whispering, whatever I could manage. And it laughed. I swear to you, it laughed. I kept praying anyway, and then I said, firmly, "You're not welcome here." Nothing changed. If anything, it felt angrier, like my words meant nothing. So I did the only thing I could think of. I ran to my parents' room to wake my mom, because she's had experiences her whole life, and I thought maybe she'd know what to do, anything. But I could not wake her. I shook her shoulder. I said her name. I tried again and again. She was breathing, lightly snoring, completely unreachable. I stood there in the dark, feeling so alone it made me want to cry. And then I went back to my room, slow, like walking toward a barking dog you can't see. I sat down, kept praying, kept hoping it would stop. After what felt like forever, probably around half an hour, it gradually settled. The noises faded. The pressure in the air eased. And then, nothing. Like someone turned it off. The next morning, I didn't negotiate with myself. I took that jar straight back to the shop and left it there. No more tug, no more obsession, just relief. And that was it. Most of the odd experiences I've had haven't been bad. Some were even comforting in a strange way. But those three? Those were the ones that felt hostile. Like whatever it was, it didn't want me there. Anyway, I'm curious, what's the most what the actual hell experience you've ever had? Alright, so let me tell you about tonight, because I'm still trying to make it make sense. My mom, Mary Ann, has been recovering from a stroke. She's doing better, slowly, day by day, but she still has those nights where she's tired in a way you can't really fix. So I went over there after work, like I usually do, and I hooked my phone up to the upstairs TV with an HDMI cable so she could watch a show without squinting at a little screen. Nothing fancy, just one of those small I love you things you do without saying it out loud. Then I did the other son stuff. I started mowing her yard because, if I'm being honest, I've kind of taken over her place as my home base. Her garage is basically my tool shed now. Half my projects, my ladder, my bags, random equipment. It's not pretty, but it works. And here's another detail. Trash pickup is Monday where she lives, and my place right now is a mess because I don't have running water, which also means I don't have trash service. So on Sundays, I bag everything up, toss it in the back of my SUV, and bring it to Mom's so I can roll it out with hers. Not glamorous, but that's where I'm at. So I'm mowing, and this storm front starts rolling in, one of those sudden, heavy ones, like the sky just decides to dump a bucket. I stop early because the rain gets ridiculous. I'm soaked, the yard's a lake, so I head into the garage to grab the municipal trash can and drag it out to the curb. And that's when the first weird thing happened. The garage door was open during the storm, but the trash cans and recycling bin were way inside, like a good 12 or 15 feet in. And one of the cans, the lid was wet. Not damp like humidity, not misted, wet like it had been rained on. But the sides were dry, the wheels were dry. Just the top looked like it had caught rainfall. I remember standing there with my hand on the handle thinking, that's odd. Then I brushed it off because, honestly, when you're carrying your life around in tool bags and garbage bags, you don't have the luxury of stopping to be creeped out. Except I had to move a ton of stuff to even reach the cans. Earlier in the week, I'd done a side job and dumped everything near the garage entrance. Tool bags, a folding work platform, a big extension ladder. It was jammed between my old project truck and 2 motorcycles. No clear path. So I'm shoving things aside, muttering under my breath, trying not to scrape a bike or slam into the truck. I get the first can out, roll it to the curb, come back inside, and I tell Mom, I'll be back later tonight. I've got a little downtime, but I still need to drag the recycling out. A couple hours pass. I come back up, and now I'm going for the recycling bin and the second trash can. We'd bought a second can because, more space, but the city refuses to empty it because it isn't the official one. So it mostly just sits in there being useless. And when I get to it, same thing. The lid looks like it's been rained on. I look at Mom and I go, "Hey, did you take this outside earlier?" And she's like, "No." But I press it. I'm tired. I'm already on edge from the storm, and in my head I'm trying to solve it logically. "Are you sure? Because it's wet on top like it was outside." She gets defensive, rightfully, honestly, and she says, "Eli, I watched you take the other trash can out. I didn't touch anything." So now I'm standing there feeling like a jerk and also feeling unsettled. To calm myself down, I check the camera that points from the garage toward the street, thinking maybe it caught something. Maybe the garage door blew rain in. Maybe something shifted. That bothered me enough that I walked through the house, room to room, checking doors, checking corners, listening. Just me and Mom. Nothing. No signs of anyone. So I tell her goodnight, I lock everything up, and I leave. I drive maybe half a mile, not far. And my phone rings. It's Mom, and she goes, "The TV just shut off by itself, and the hall light keeps turning on and off." I spun right around. I mean, instantly. That adrenaline, something's wrong with my mom, panic hits, and I'm back at her driveway in minutes. She meets me, wide-eyed, pointing toward the hallway like she's afraid to look at it too long. She says, "It turned on and off twice right after you pulled away." I go straight to the living room and start looking for the TV remote because sometimes it's just the remote. And sure enough, I dig it out from between the couch cushions like it's been hiding there all along. I hold it up like, "Okay, that part, solved." But Mom looks at me and goes, "So what about the hall light?" And I don't have anything for her. I just don't. I'm standing there thinking about the wet trash can lids, the camera cutting out, the light flipping, the TV going dark, and I can feel myself getting angry, not at her, but at the situation, at my own fear, at the fact that my brain wants to blame something. And I had yelled earlier, not proud of it. I'd basically interrogated my mom like she was sneaking trash cans outside in the rain for fun. So I apologize. I tell her I'm sorry, that I'm just stressed, and I love her, and I'm not mad at her. I hug her, like a real hug, the kind where you hold on an extra second because you're grateful she's standing there. Then I walk out again. I step onto the porch, hit the lock button on my key fob, and I hear music coming from the garage, like a radio is on. I freeze. I'm not even joking. I just stood there with my thumb still on the fob, trying to process what I was hearing. And at the exact same time, my phone rings again. It's Mom, and she picks up immediately and says, before I can even speak, "There's music coming from the basement." I just said, "I hear it too." I hit the garage door opener, the door rolls up, and sure enough, one of my old radios is blasting like somebody just decided to throw on a song at full volume. I run in and shut it off, staring at the dial like it's going to explain itself. It hadn't been on. I know it hadn't. I'd been in that garage multiple times tonight, moving things, dragging cans, looking for answers. It wasn't playing a minute earlier. And listen, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just telling you what happened. But tonight felt wrong in this quiet, personal way, like the house was nudging us, poking at the edges of normal. And the creepiest part? It wasn't even the music. It was Mom's voice on the phone, small, tired, scared, asking me to explain something I couldn't explain. I've had strange experiences before. I've seen things I can't neatly label. I just never expected it to happen in her house. Not like this. Not on a night I was just trying to do the kind sun stuff. Mow the lawn, take out the trash, help my mom watch a show. And I swear to you, I'm going to be thinking about that wet trash can lid for a long, long time. So, before I even start, I need you to know I've read a ton of posts about astral spiders, and what happened to me is a little different. And honestly, I just want someone out there to tell me I'm not losing it. When I was a kid, maybe 6 or 7, I started getting nightmares. But it wasn't a bunch of different dreams. It was the same one, over and over, for years. It always began with me waking up in my bed, in the dark, and getting up like it was totally normal. Everything looked exactly like my real house. Same layout, same shapes in the darkness, even the way the hallway felt when you walked into it. And that's the thing. There was this heavy, wrong feeling from the second I stepped into the hall. Like the air was colder, thicker, like I shouldn't be there. I couldn't see much, but I'd shuffle down the hallway anyway, and at the far end there would always be something waiting. Not a normal spider, not even a big one. It was like a spider-shaped person, or a person-shaped spider. Too tall, too thin. Its limbs looked bent the wrong way, like they'd been snapped and healed badly. And even though the room was dark, it was darker than the dark, like it was made of absence. And then it would vanish. But here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. Every time I had that dream again, it was closer. A little closer each night, like it was learning the distance between us. Eventually, I started dreading sleep. I'd lay there trying to keep my eyes open, bargaining with myself. Just stay awake. Just stay awake. Then one night, the dream changed. Instead of walking down the hallway, I got out of bed and went to my closet. I don't even know why, like something pulled me there. I reached toward the door, and the second it cracked open, something yanked my arm so hard it hurt. I remember it leaning in, staring at me, and I couldn't make out its face. Just this sense of attention, like being studied up close. And I jolted awake, heart racing, arm burning like I'd really been grabbed. Not long after that, I got so scared I asked to sleep in my grandma's room. I thought being near someone would help. But that night, this is the part I still struggle to explain. These black, scribbly shapes appeared right in front of my face in the darkness. Not like normal floaters or imagination stuff. They were violent, frantic, like something sketching itself into the air. They moved so aggressively it actually gave me a pounding headache, and I remember pressing my hands to my temples and wanting to cry. I tried telling my dad the next day that something felt wrong, that something was happening, but I was a kid. He brushed it off like I was being dramatic, like kids just get nightmares. Then time passed. Life happened. My grandparents were gone by then, and I was maybe 12 or 13 when this next part happened. I'd gone out with a boy I shouldn't have been seeing. Older, trouble, that kind of thing. I remember he took me to a small church first, then we went to a movie. I came home late, got in trouble immediately, and I was so drained I just collapsed on the couch in the living room. We had this game console, one of those with the handheld screen controller. I remember checking the time on it, then rolling over so I was facing the couch cushions, away from the room. And then, it came back. That same frozen fear poured over me, like someone dumped ice water inside my chest. I suddenly felt like if I turned around, I'd see something I couldn't handle. And I held still, trying to convince myself it was nothing, trying to be brave. But I finally turned. I remember the sound I made, half gasp, half sob. I cried right there on the couch, feeling ridiculous and terrified at the same time. Years later, my dad told me something that made my skin crawl all over again. He said he'd seen something in the house. He called it a demon. He said he believed it came up from the basement stairs one night, moved toward him, and touched him, like it wanted him to know it was real. And it wasn't just him. My stepmom, Mara, once told me she saw something crawling down the stairs from the direction of my room. And my dog, Benny, used to sit facing one specific wall and bark for what felt like forever. Like he could see something I couldn't. Hours, sometimes. Just barking and bristling and refusing to leave. And there were nights where I'd be in bed, trying to sleep, and I would feel the mattress shift, like weight settling beside me, like someone climbing in, lying down, getting comfortable. Sometimes I'd feel it near my legs, sometimes behind my back, and I'd go completely still because I didn't know what else to do. Even now, after all these years, it still feels like something is there. Not always visible, not always loud, just present. Like a pressure in the room that doesn't match anything normal. And I know how it sounds. I do. That's why I'm saying this the way I am. I just want someone to tell me I'm not crazy, that I'm not alone in this, that there's a name for the feeling of being watched by something you can't prove exists. And I don't even know if this matters, but my family has ties to Freemasonry. I don't know if that connects to anything at all. I just know what I've lived through, what I've felt, and what I've seen. So if you're listening, please, tell me I'm not crazy. Okay, so this still gives me chills when I think about it, and it's been years. My partner Eli and I had just signed a lease for this little 2-story place, and we're doing the official walkthrough with the landlord. He owned 2 houses right next to each other, ours and the one next door, and he was acting perfectly normal until we weren't. The house was completely empty. No furniture, no boxes, nothing. Just bare rooms and that hollow sound your footsteps make when a place hasn't been lived in for a while. We're upstairs, standing in one of the bedrooms, and out of nowhere we hear this violent bang, like something heavy fell over or got dropped hard, the kind of sound that makes your stomach flip. All 3 of us freeze, like dead still. Eli and I look at each other, Then we look at the landlord, and his face is… I don't know how to explain it. He looked like someone had just whispered something horrible in his ear. He goes, really quietly, "You heard that too, right?" We search every room, closets, cabinets, the stairs, under the sinks, everything. And there's nothing. Nothing fallen, nothing broken, no animals, no reason. So we finish the tour anyway because what are you going to do? Pretend it didn't happen? And we're outside by Eli's SUV, just trying to laugh it off, when suddenly, the car starts freaking out, lights flickering, the alarm going off in these weird, stuttering bursts. Not the normal pattern, like it couldn't decide whether to scream or whisper. The landlord's whole vibe shifts into, "I want to be anywhere but here." He shoves the paperwork into my hands, mumbles something like, "Call if you need anything," and basically speed walks to his car and leaves. And I'm not proud of this, but I sat in Eli's driver's seat and cried. Full on. Because I was convinced we had just signed a lease with something that did not want us there. I went home and spiraled, Googling lease loopholes, legal terms, anything. But you know how it goes. A couple weeks pass, you start explaining it away. Old house noises, electrical issues, coincidences. So we moved in. Move-in day. Door opens. And this tiny black cat rockets out between our legs like it's escaping prison. I had 2 friends helping us move, and all of us saw it. All of us heard the little paws skittering on the floor. It was real. We searched for it, thinking maybe it had been trapped inside, and that's what caused that bang during the walkthrough. But we couldn't find it anywhere. No cat, no trace, nothing. And that's when the weird stuff started feeling consistent. Lights flipping on and off, smoke alarms going off randomly, the TV changing channels or blasting volume like it was possessed by a teenager with a remote. Doors that we knew we shut, just open. I told my friend Maris, who's one of those people that's calm about spiritual stuff in a way that makes me feel both comforted and deeply unsettled. And she's like, "Honestly, that doesn't sound hostile." She explained it in this really steady way, like neutral presences tend to do attention-grabbing things, and the nasty ones escalate into intimidation. Throwing things, moving furniture, marks, that kind of thing. She even said the walkthrough stuff sounded almost like excitement, like the house had been quiet for a long time and something was like, "Oh, people, finally!" At the time, I rolled my eyes. Now, I kind of get it. Then we got friendly with our neighbor next door, Tessa, who lived in the other house owned by the same landlord. And she's asking us these careful little questions about the place, like she's testing the water. Finally, I'm like, "Okay, you're clearly holding something back. What's going on?" That night, she's in bed, settling in, and she sees what looks like paw prints forming on her blanket. Like something invisible is stepping in circles, trying to find the perfect spot. Then the blanket dips, like a little animal sits down, and her dog starts barking at the bed like it's losing its mind. She turns on the light, and obviously there's nothing there, but she's shaken. And then she has this dream. She's sitting outside on the back porch, having tea with this older woman named Mabel, and Mabel's got a black cat curled up in her lap like it's the most normal thing in the world. Tessa wakes up freaked out, starts cleansing her house, telling Mabel, out loud, to leave. Then she goes into work the next day, determined not to say anything. And the landlord brings it up first. He goes, "This is going to sound crazy, but I had the weirdest dream last night. I was having tea with an old woman named Mabel, and she had a black cat on her lap. Like, come on." They tried digging into the property history. The place had been vacant for a while, bought cheap after a foreclosure. No clear record of who lived there right before. It was all a bunch of guesses, but the dream coincidence felt too specific, too shared. And that's when I started doing something that sounds ridiculous but genuinely helped. Because we never felt threatened. Scared, yes, but not like we were being hunted. It felt weirdly domestic sometimes, almost protective, like a presence that wanted to be noticed, not feared. And I'm telling you, my electric kettle would click on by itself more than once. Not every day, but enough times that I'd stand there like, are you kidding me right now? So I started talking out loud, mostly joking, mostly to keep myself from panicking. A light would flicker and I'd be like, hi, Mabel. Or something would happen and I'd go, okay, very funny, stop showing off. And the activity calmed down. Like it just wanted acknowledgement. Like once it got that, it didn't need to shout anymore. But then, there was one night. The night that still sits in my chest like a stone. Eli and I were asleep upstairs, bedroom at the top of the stairs. I wake up because I hear something, some faint sound that doesn't belong. And instantly I realize I can't move. Full sleep paralysis. I had it as a kid, so I recognize it right away. That horrible trapped in your own body feeling. You're awake, but your body isn't online yet. I'm trying to blink harder, trying to force my fingers to twitch, trying to make anything happen. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see a shape in the doorway. A dark figure. Not detailed, no face, no clothing. Just a person-shaped void, standing perfectly still in the frame of our door. My heart is hammering. I'm sweating. And the terror is so sharp it feels physical, like cold metal. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die and I can't even scream. It goes on for what feels like forever. Minutes. Endless minutes. And then, suddenly, the hallway light clicks on. And at the exact same time, this warmth floods my whole body. Like a tingly heat washing over me from head to toe. And I swear to you, I heard, clear as if someone leaned down beside my ear, you're safe. And instead of fighting, instead of snapping into panic like sleep paralysis normally does, I just drifted back to sleep. Like someone turned the fear off, which has never happened to me. Ever. Sleep paralysis ends with you clawing your way back into movement, usually sobbing or gasping or shaking. You do not just peacefully fall asleep again in the middle of that. Later, I wake up for real. I can move this time. I'm crying, shaking Eli awake, telling him what I saw, telling him there was something in the doorway. Because he says, I just had a dream. And Eli never remembers dreams. He tells me he dreamed we were asleep, and a dark figure came in through the back door, left it open, walked through the house like it knew exactly where to go, went up the stairs, and stopped at our bedroom doorway to watch us. And in the dream, he couldn't wake up, couldn't shout, couldn't move, like he was floating above it all, watching it happen but trapped. And the moment he says this, we both just stare at each other. And neither of us wants to move. But we do. We get up, we go downstairs, and the stairway light is on, and the back door is wide open. Not cracked, not unlatched, open. We were obsessive about locking up, like annoying about it. Check it twice, sometimes 3 times. And it was a heavy door. It didn't just drift open. We searched the whole house, every room, every closet, under the stairs, nothing. And the creepiest part? Nothing was taken. We had keys, wallets, everything right near the entrance, untouched. So to this day, we don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a real person and somehow nothing came of it, or something else. Something that felt wrong in a way the other activity never did. But the hallway light, the one that always flickered, the one that felt like Mabel's little signature, that light turning on right when the warmth washed over me. It felt like an intervention, like something stepped in and said, not tonight. After that, we got a doorbell camera, and the house went quiet for a long time, almost like it was exhausted. like whatever was there had spent everything it had. Eventually, the little signs came back, small, harmless things. But that night changed us, because whether it was human or not, we both felt it. We were in danger, and something protected us. Not long after, Tessa moved out, and later Eli and I moved into the house next door. And the difference was immediate, like walking out of a crowded, noisy room into a silent field. Peaceful, still, normal. But every once in a while, I'd light a candle anyway. Not out of fear, more like respect. Because it's been about 4 years now, and I still think about that hallway light, and that warmth, and those words. You're safe. And how impossible it felt to be pulled gently back into sleep while something watched from the doorway. And I don't know what you believe, but I'll tell you this. I've never forgotten the feeling that we weren't alone in that house. And on the scariest night of our lives, we weren't unprotected either. So, I don't tell this story to freak you out. I tell it because it was real to me, and it shaped the way I understand heavy energy, like the kind you can't see but you can absolutely feel. I grew up without a dad, lower middle class, in this cramped little townhouse that always felt like it was trying to hold too much. It was me, my older brother Malik, my grandma, everyone called her Nana Joe, and my mom, Cheryl, who was active duty in the Navy. My mom was deeply depressed. Like, not just sad. It was this low, looming cloud that sat in the house with us. And even as a teenager, I could feel it. She kept to herself, door closed most of the time, like the master bedroom was her whole world and we were just living around the edges of it. Then one day, she got hurt at work. Bad. She broke her ankle and part of her foot, ended up with screws and metal, and she was basically stuck in bed for weeks. And if her depression was already a weight, once she was bedridden, it was like the weight doubled. I didn't really ask her what was wrong. I was young and, honestly, our family didn't do the whole talk about feelings thing. It felt like you stayed in your lane. You didn't pry. So I just watched and tried not to make anything harder. But that's when the weird stuff started. After my mom couldn't get up anymore, Nana Joe and I began noticing things we couldn't explain. At night, we'd hear banging downstairs, like somebody was forcing their way in. Cabinets, footsteps, the kind of noise that makes your stomach drop. We'd grab whatever we could, rush down there, hearts going crazy, and there would be nothing. Nobody. No broken lock. No open window. Just silence, like the house was pretending it didn't do anything. And then there were these random cold spots. Not, oh, the AC is on, cold. Like walking into a patch of air that felt wrong. Like it had a purpose. But the worst part was my mom's room. To get to it, you had to walk down this long hallway. And after a while, I started to dread that hallway. I'm talking full-body dread, like something in me was saying, don't go down there. And it wasn't just me. Nana Joe avoided it too. She'd stand at the doorway and call in, but she wouldn't step all the way inside unless she absolutely had to. My mom was dating this guy then. His name was Keith, and he hated that room. He'd go in there, and within minutes he'd be rubbing his chest like he couldn't breathe right. He told us he'd get sleep paralysis whenever he stayed near her room, like he'd wake up unable to move, convinced someone was on top of him, hands around his throat. My uncles would come by too, and every single one of them, without comparing notes, without being dramatic, said the same thing, that the room felt oppressive, thick, like walking into a storm. And here's the part that still messes with me. It was mostly the men who reacted that way. Women would still feel uneasy, sure, but the men described it like something was targeting them. Then one day, this is the part I can picture like it's a photo, My mom calls me and Nana Joe into her room. Her voice wasn't playful or curious. It was serious, tight. The moment we stepped inside, the room was freezing. Not chilly, freezing. My mom is lying there, completely stuck, can't even put weight on her foot, and she's staring at her bed like she's trying to understand how the world works. Because the bed had moved. Not shifted a little. I mean, it had been dragged, or lifted, and dropped in a different spot. And the carpet had this clear dent where the bed used to be, like the floor itself was pointing to the original position. Nana Joe starts moving around the room, and she opens the closet. And this smell comes out, like sulfur, like rotten eggs. It hit the back of my throat and made my eyes water. Nana Joe's face changed instantly. That woman had seen everything in her life, and I watched her go pale. We tell my mom about the closet and the smell, and she doesn't look surprised. She just says, really calmly, like she's naming the weather, "That was probably Evelyn." Evelyn, like she knew her. I remember my skin going prickly all over, because how do you say a name like that in a situation like that? Like you've met the thing doing it? A few days later, my mom calls us in again. This time she tells us, "Come here, look at the TV." The TV was off, just a black screen, glossy enough to reflect the room. She says, "Look in it, not at it, in it." So Nana Joe and I stand there, staring at the reflection. And at first it's just us, the bed, the chair beside it. Then I realized the chair in the reflection didn't look empty. There was someone sitting there. A woman. Not sharp and clear like a normal reflection, but unmistakable. Like a shape that didn't belong, holding its place anyway. She looked like she was wearing this old-fashioned gown. Something vintage, something that didn't fit the time we were living in. Her arms were resting like the chair had armrests, all composed, like she'd been sitting there a long time and had no intention of moving. I couldn't make out her face. I tried. I remember leaning slightly, like maybe if I shifted my angle I could catch details. But it was like the face didn't want to be seen. And the way she was positioned, she wasn't staring off into space. She was facing us. Like she was watching and waiting for us to notice her. I don't even remember anyone speaking. I just remember the air feeling thick and my heartbeat pounding so hard I swear it made my ears ring. Not long after that we moved, and about a year later I heard the townhouse caught fire. Now here's where it gets even stranger. Later on I looked into the house, not because I wanted to be scared again, more like I needed to know if we were imagining things or if something had been there before us. And from what we found, a woman had died there. Not natural, not peaceful. She'd been killed, pushed down the stairs during an argument, according to what people said. Her name? Evelyn. And I still don't know how my mom knew it. To this day, I never asked her. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you grow up in a house where everyone survives by not poking at certain topics, you carry that into moments where you probably should ask. So I just live with it. That there was a name in my mom's mouth before we ever did any digging. That the room got cold like the house was holding its breath. That the bed moved like something wanted us to understand it could. And that in the black mirror of an old TV, a woman sat beside my mother's bed, quiet as a shadow, dressed like another era, watching us watch her. So, my daughter Maisie and I just got back from a trip to rural Virginia, and I'm still trying to fully shake it. We'd booked this little Airbnb for 6 nights, but we left after the 4th day. And I know how that sounds, like, oh, it just wasn't what you expected. But no, this was a deep, stomach-level, something is not right kind of situation. The host, Linda, had that sweet, smiling, bless your heart kind of vibe. like the classic warm southern hospitality. But even on the first night, there was this off note under it. For one thing, the door code was this long string of numbers, not even a pattern, just random. She'd clearly memorized it, but my brain didn't stand a chance. We arrived tired, unloaded the car, and I realized I'd locked us out. So, I had to walk over to Linda's house on the property to ask for the code again. She invites us inside, very friendly, and then she starts asking questions. Where we're from, how long we're staying, what we're doing in town. Normal stuff. Except, she looks right at Maisie and says, real casually, that the questions are for her, and that I should let the little one answer and stay quiet. I remember blinking, like, did I hear that right? And then, on the way back, she tells us we should keep the curtains closed, even though it's safe, because we're two girls. Which, okay, but it was this huge private property. No nearby houses, no neighbors peeking through windows, just woods and open land. So it didn't feel protective, it felt pointed. That first night, I wrote it off. We'd been traveling forever, we were exhausted, and I kept hearing this sound in the bedroom, like a big beetle or something with a hard shell smacking into the unit on the wall over and over. Annoying, but I was too tired to care. I went straight to sleep. The second night is when it shifted. We were in bed, the house quiet, and the attached bathroom upstairs started making this faint metallic tink-tink sound, like tapping or something gently rattling. Maisie slept right through it, thankfully, but I laid there wide awake with this creeping anxiety that didn't match the situation. I kept telling myself, you're just overtired, travel jitters, you're being dramatic. But then these little things kept happening. Every time we left the rental and came back, the fan I'd left on was turned off. Every single time. Not unplugged, just switched off. And in the bathroom, there was this small extendable mirror, the only mirror in the place, really. One of those that swivels and tilts. I noticed it kept being angled downward, like aimed at a kid's height. At first, I assumed it was Maisie, but then I tilted it back up one afternoon, walked downstairs to check on her while she colored, came back up not even 10 minutes later, and the mirror was tilted down again. That was when my stomach dropped, because she hadn't even been upstairs. By the third night, I already felt like we were being watched. I didn't say that out loud, because saying it makes you sound like you've lost it. But it was in my bones. Maisie went to take a shower, and she pauses at the bathroom doorway and says, so quietly, like it's obvious, I'm closing the doors so the fireflies can't watch me. And here's the thing, Maisie is glued to me. She's outgoing, fearless, always chatting, always wanting the door cracked so we can talk while she showers. She does not close the door. So when she said that, it hit me like a cold splash. Because she was feeling it too, and she was trying to make sense of it in the only way an 8-year-old can. That night, she fell asleep fast, but I couldn't. My heart kept racing. I kept having these waves of panic, which is not normal for me. I'm not the kind of person who gets panic attacks out of nowhere. The metallic tinkering in the bathroom sped up, like someone was fussing with something. Not just one tap here and there. It sounded purposeful. Then it sounded like items on the counter were being moved around. I heard what I swear sounded like something dropping, like a cup or glass clinking against something hard. And then, this is the part that made my skin go tight. I heard the closet door across from the bed open. My suitcases were shoved right in front of it, so when that door opened, I heard it bump them. Twice. Like it hit the luggage and stopped. I didn't move. I barely breathed. And it went on. For a long time. Long enough that I stopped trying to rationalize it. Long enough that the only thought I had was, get your child out. Now. The next morning, I walked into the bathroom, and right there, on the white towel laid in front of the shower, were small, muddy footprints. like a child's footprints, coming out of the shower. They weren't there the night before. I would have seen them. And Maisie hadn't been anywhere muddy. If she had, the mud would have tracked in from the front door where we took our shoes off. There would have been prints across the floor, not just neat little wet-looking marks from the shower. I just stood there staring at them, trying to explain it away, and I couldn't. So I packed. Fast. Quiet. Smiling from my daughter like everything was normal, while my hands shook. I got us out of there and didn't look back. A couple days later, Linda messaged me, cheerful as ever, offering an extra night free on her, like it was a sweet little gift. I declined. Immediately. And since we got home, I keep replaying everything in my head, trying to decide what to do with it. Do I message her? Do I leave a review? Do I just let it go? All I know is it took me days to stop feeling like something was still hovering at the edge of my life. Like, that house followed us home in my nervous system. And honestly, it scared me badly enough that I don't know if I'll ever stay in an Airbnb again. Welcome back, friends, to the Paranormal M channel. Thank you so much for all your support and for sharing so many mysterious experiences with us. I truly appreciate it, and I love what I do. I feel incredibly lucky to be here, sharing these stories with you and helping you sleep a little better. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our latest videos. Now, switch on your nightlight, put on your headphones, and let's dive into today's mysterious experiences. All right. So this happened when I was living in a little town called Hinesville, Arkansas. And I'm not telling you some campfire story I found online. I was there. And I wasn't alone. There were 8 other people in the room with me, all of us seeing the exact same thing with our own eyes. Back then, I was the kind of person who rolled their eyes at anything paranormal. Ghosts, spirits, whatever. Nope. I figured there was always a logical explanation. I'd been in Hinesville a little over a year at that point, and I honestly thought I had the place figured out. But one night in late 2010, I ended up at this small house party. Nothing wild, just a handful of friends, some drinks, music playing low, people laughing in that lazy way they do when they're comfortable. At some point, the conversation drifted, like it always does, into spooky stuff. Someone brought up local legends, and then this girl, Tessa, asked if anyone had ever heard of the Bride of the Hollow. Most of us said no. But 2 people, Riley and Mark, did this quick little look at each other, like they were silently agreeing. Here we go. So they start explaining it. They said that decades earlier, maybe the early 1980s, depending on who you asked, a woman was headed to her wedding, all dressed up in white, riding in a car that never made it there. Wrecked near this stretch of woods outside town, near a shallow valley locals called the Hollow. And after that, people started seeing her, late at night, always in a long white dress, always moving wrong, like she wasn't walking so much as sliding. And here's the part everyone always said the same way. Nobody ever saw her face. That's when this guy in the room, Caleb, finally spoke. He'd been quiet all night, just kind of listening with his drink in his hand. He let out this and said, "People tell me I'm full of it, but I've seen her." You could feel the temperature of the room change. Not literally, but you know what I mean. Like the vibe shifted. Everyone got quieter without even realizing it. Caleb said the first time was when he'd gone out to hunt right before sunset. And he described this moment where the woods just shut off. No birds, no bugs, no rustling. Just silence so sudden it felt intentional. He said he saw her between the trees. No crunch of leaves, no snap of twigs. Just there. A tall figure in white, gliding forward with her hands stretched out like she was presenting something. He said it was a bouquet, flowers held carefully in both hands. But the flowers looked dead, dried out, browned like they'd been pressed in an old book for years. And when he tried to look up at her face, he couldn't make his eyes focus on it. Like his brain refused to process what it was seeing. He packed up and left immediately, didn't even finish the hunt. Then he tells us about the second time, camping, late night, fire down to embers. He noticed movement near the tree line and thought it was smoke drifting through the dark. But then it separated from the shadows. He said she hovered just outside the firelight, not stepping into it, just lingering at the edge like she didn't want to be fully seen. And he told us he didn't sleep, not even a minute. He sat there until morning, watching the woods. Now, as the party went on, people started clearing out. Some went to the kitchen, some outside. A couple passed out in random chairs, you know. Eventually, 9 of us ended up sitting in the living room. And the thing about that living room is it had this big front window, like a wide picture window, that looked straight into the trees. We'd all stared out of it 100 times before. There was never anything out there but darkness and branches. We're talking, half paying attention, and then Maddie just stops mid-sentence. Like someone hit pause on her. She's staring straight at the glass. And I remember thinking, what is she looking at? Then I saw it too, but as it drifted closer, the outline sharpened. It was tall, too still, wearing a long white dress that floated just above the ground. And it wasn't walking. It moved smooth, like the ground wasn't even a factor. No bobbing motion, no shifting weight, just a steady gliding approach, silent as a thought. And it was holding something out in front of her. When she reached the edge of the yard, nobody spoke. It was like all our voices had been taken. She passed directly in front of the window, right in front of us, and that's when I saw the bouquet. Wilted, brown, old, like something you'd find in the bottom of a trunk in an attic. Her head was tilted down toward the flowers, like she was staring at them. And then, this is the part that still makes my stomach tighten. There was no face, no eyes, no nose, nothing. Just a hollow darkness where a face should have been, like looking into an empty hood. I felt this cold pressure slide down my arms into my chest, like my body knew before my mind could catch up that something was wrong. We watched her glide toward the side of the house, out of sight of the window. And that's when the doorknob moved. Not the window, the actual side door. It twisted slowly at first, careful, deliberate, like someone trying not to make noise. Then it rattled harder, like whoever it was testing it, trying to figure out how to get in. Nobody moved. I don't mean we chose not to move. I mean we couldn't. I don't think anyone even blinked. And then, it stopped. The pressure in the room lifted almost instantly, like a weight had been taken off our shoulders. We all snapped our eyes back to the window. She was gone. No footsteps, no crunch of leaves, no movement. The woods were still again, like they'd never been disturbed. For a long time, we just sat there, trying to make sense of it with the only tools we had: logic, denial, excuses. Later, we tried to explain it away. We blamed the drinks. We said our minds filled in details because we'd just heard the story. But here's the problem with that. 9 people don't hallucinate the same faceless woman. 9 people don't all imagine the same dead bouquet. And 9 people don't all hear the same doorknob twist like someone's trying to come inside. I don't know what she wanted. I don't know if telling her story brought her closer, like we invited her without meaning to. I don't know if she thought someone in that house was waiting for her. I only know this. I didn't believe in any of it before that night. And after that, I couldn't pretend it wasn't real. I moved away not too long later. But even now, people still talk about that valley. They still trade sightings. They still whisper about the bride who never made it to her wedding. And honestly, if you've ever had something happen that you can't explain, I want to hear it. I really do. because I know how it feels to sit there afterward, trying to convince yourself you imagined it, when deep down, you know you didn't. Hey, so what I'm about to tell you is just my life, honestly. It's not one of those "this happened once" kinds of stories. It's been threaded through my whole childhood and into adulthood, like something that never fully packs up and leaves. But if I'm being real with you, the strangest and most intense stuff really kicked off after we renovated part of the house in 2021. So, picture this. My family and I moved into this old farmhouse back in 2011, one of those places that used to be something else, then got converted into a home. There are 6 of us, and I'm the oldest, so I've always had that "I need to keep it together" role, even when I'm scared out of my mind. And the first thing, this goes way back, was the breathing. When I was little, in my bedroom on the 2nd floor, I'd hear this heavy, slow breathing. Not like normal snoring, more like someone trying to breathe through a blocked nose, wet and forced, like they were struggling a bit. And the weird part is, it always sounded close, like a few steps away, maybe 4 or 5 meters. At the time, I kept telling myself it was my dad, because he'd crash on the couch in front of the TV all the time. Even though the sound felt like it was upstairs with me, I just filed it away. Kids do that. You explain things so you can sleep. But after the renovations, that file it away trick stopped working. One night, I remember this so clearly it makes my stomach tighten. I was sitting on the windowsill in my room. It was late, maybe around 12:30 a.m. I wasn't doing anything dramatic, just staring out into the dark the way you do when you can't settle. And then, out of nowhere, I felt this sharp pain across my foot, like something dragged along it. I looked down and there was a scratch. Not a little one. It ran across a big chunk of my foot, like something had raked me. My heart just dropped. I kind of froze, then slid off the sill and pressed myself against the wall by the window, trying to get distance from I don't even know what. And here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. Right next to the window was this low cabinet. Heavy, old, the kind you can't easily move. And maybe 10 seconds after I got off the sill, I heard this sound, like psh, psh, right down near the floor, like air being pushed out, like someone whispering without words. Then, a little laugh, a snicker, from under that cabinet. The gap underneath it is tiny, like a few centimeters. There shouldn't have been anything under there. And I know how that sounds, believe me. But that sound was real enough that my whole body went cold. I bolted to my bed on the other side of the room. From there, I could see underneath the cabinet clearly because my bed faced it. I kept staring like my eyes could force something to appear. Nothing. Just darkness and dust. And then, like the house wanted to prove it could do worse, about 10 minutes later, I heard someone fall down the stairs. Not a little stumble, an actual fall, like a body hitting step after step. It was loud enough that I expected shouting, or someone calling out, or at least movement downstairs. The next morning I asked my family, one by one, if anyone had slipped on the stairs during the night. Everyone said no. And the bathroom. The bathroom is a whole other thing. So the layout is like this. There's a hallway, the toilet is at the very end, and the bathroom is on the left wall just before you reach it. So if you're walking to the toilet, you have to pass the bathroom doorway. Most of the time the bathroom door is open, and I swear, out of the corner of my eye, I see a small shape in the tub. And it's not every single time, but it's often enough that I dread that walk down the hallway. I've learned not to look directly. The second I try to really focus on it, it's like my brain refuses, like my vision snaps away on instinct. After sunset, I can't go into that bathroom. I just can't. It's like my body flips into this alert animal mode, heart racing, skin buzzing, every part of me screaming to get out. If I absolutely have to go in, I move fast. I don't breathe properly, and I don't turn my back to the tub. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's not a choice. It's pure survival reflex. Even during the day, though, stuff happens. One morning, late morning, around 10:45, I was on a call with my friend Mia while I was getting ready. I had this little Bluetooth speaker in the bathroom, but I wasn't using it for the call anymore. It wasn't connected to my phone, not connected to anything. I stepped out of the bathroom for a second to grab something from my room, and when I came back, the speaker was making this uneven crackling sound, like electrical static but irregular, almost like it was reacting to me. And the closer I got, the faster it became, like it was speeding up on purpose. I got right up to it and it was practically spitting rapid little pops. I turned it off immediately and asked Mia if she'd heard any of that through the call. She said no, nothing. And in my bedroom, it's smaller things, but they add up. Sometimes at night, I'll see shadows pass by, like someone walking just outside my door, or crossing the room when there's nowhere they could have gone. And every once in a while, when I'm changing clothes, the lights start flickering. Not a slow dim, a quick, nervous flutter. And the moment I'm done, like literally when I pull my shirt on and step away from the mirror, it stops. Other people have noticed things too, which honestly makes it worse, because it means it's not just my head. My younger brother Elias once had his radio crackle and pop even though it wasn't plugged in. One of my friends slept over and had a nightmare so intense she woke up crying, and she's not someone who gets nightmares, like, ever. And my mom's friend Celine, she's the kind of person who claims she can sense things. I usually roll my eyes at that stuff, but she went quiet the first time she stepped into our house. Later, she told me she felt 3 distinct presences, like 3 separate someones, and the way she described them matched details I'd never told her. So yeah, that's why I say, as calmly as I can, I think something's in that house with us, and I don't think it's new. I think it's been there the whole time. I just think the renovations woke it up. So, let me set the scene for you. A while back, I got hired for this super niche, hands-on art job. One of those things where you can't really phone it in, and you definitely can't leave it half-finished. The location was this repurposed building from the late 1800s, right in the middle of a big city. Philadelphia, actually. Gorgeous in that worn, echoey way, but also the kind of place where you can feel how many years are sitting in the walls. They'd only been using the space again for maybe 2, 3 years. Before that, it sounded like it had been sitting quiet forever. And because the work had to be done overnight, finished by morning, they had a security guard assigned to stay in the building with me the whole time. His name was Marcus, and from about midnight on, it was just me, Marcus, and this huge, creaky, half-revived old building. When we met up at the start of the shift, I did that thing I always do, try to lighten the mood. I laughed and went, "All right, be honest. Is this place haunted?" Marcus just smiled like he'd heard it before and said, "Nope, been here for years. It's not haunted." And honestly, I believed him. Here's the thing. People always assume you have to be a certain type to have experiences like this. Like you have to be fragile or superstitious or easily spooked. I'm not. I'm tough. I've worked alone in weird places, late hours, odd situations. I'm not jumpy, but I've had little things happen over the years. Only in places that have history. You know what I mean? It's usually small stuff, like a flicker of movement from the corner of my eye, a shadow that's not quite a shadow, a shape that disappears the second you try to look directly at it. Once or twice, I've heard my name said softly when nobody was there, and I felt a touch on my shoulder like someone brushing past me. Nothing that ever felt violent or evil, more like something noticing you, sharing space with you. So that night, as I'm working, I start catching those familiar little flutters again, just quick movement at the edge of my vision. I didn't panic. I actually remember thinking, okay, so maybe Marcus is wrong. Maybe it's a little haunted. Fine. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened around 4:20 in the morning. I'd been working for hours by then, deep in it, headphones on, completely locked into that zone where your hands know what to do before your brain catches up. The work was going beautifully. Everything was turning out exactly the way I'd pictured it. I was tired, sure, but in that satisfied, focused way where you're riding the momentum. At one point, I was digging through my tool bag, eyes down, sorting through a mess of supplies, when suddenly, something rushed me. Not like a breeze, not like a sound, like a person, a man. It was fast, this solid, stout figure moving straight toward me like he was trying to startle me on purpose. My first thought was, Marcus. He was a bigger guy too, and I figured maybe he was messing around, trying to be funny. But then, right as that thought landed, I saw what the figure was wearing, and my stomach just dropped. It wasn't a modern uniform. It looked like an old clerical outfit, like a priest's robe. Dark fabric, that unmistakable collar, old-fashioned, formal, out of time. I swear to you, I saw it clearly. And then, just like that, he was gone. Not ran away, not ducked behind something. Gone, like someone turned off a light. The exact same way those corner-of-the-eye shadows disappear. Except this time it was close. Way too close. But I didn't. I froze for a beat. And then, weirdly, the fear didn't fully take over. It was more like adrenaline mixed with awe. Because once I realized what I'd just seen, I got this rush of, how do I explain it? Excitement. Like, oh, that was real. That actually just happened. And I remember thinking, was he trying to scare me? It felt like it, honestly, like a prank, except from another century. I didn't sense anything malicious, no heavy dread, no sick feeling, just that jolt of being startled. So I started walking toward where Marcus usually sat. I was about to tell him, I really was, but as I got close, I stopped myself. I peeked in, saw him sitting there like normal, calm as anything, and I thought, he's going to think I've lost my mind. So I didn't say a word. I went back to my work, but for the last couple hours, I was hyper-aware of everything. Every little sound, every shift of light, every corner of the room. Nothing else happened after that, not like that. But I'll tell you what did happen. I felt watched. Not constantly, but enough that I noticed it. Like there was a tension in the space. Like something was aware I was there and was just observing. I finished the job right on time. Morning came. My bosses were thrilled, like thrilled. They praised everything, said it was exactly what they wanted. And later that day, once I was out of that building and in daylight with coffee in my hands, I told a couple close friends. The kind of friends who don't immediately laugh at you. Because I know what I saw. And I know I'm not the only one. That building? Yeah. It's haunted. Absolutely haunted. Okay, so here's what I actually remember, the way it happened to me. It was 2013, back when I was still a kid, the kind of age where you fall asleep anywhere and still wake up scared of the dark. I'm telling you, I didn't even have a bad dream or anything. I just woke up. No reason. Just wide awake. My room was pitch black. Not normal black. More like that thick darkness where your brain can't decide what the corners of the room are doing. I blinked a few times, letting my eyes catch up. And that's when I noticed someone sitting across from my bed. a little girl. And I need you to understand why that hit me so hard. I lived with my parents and my two younger brothers. No sisters, no cousins staying over, no neighborhood kids. There was absolutely no reason for a little girl to be in my bedroom. She was sitting in a rocking chair, and even that part felt wrong, because the chair looked old, like it had been loved and forgotten and dragged back into the world. It was painted a faded seafoam green, and on the top rail someone had painted a tiny yellow duck with peeling paint around it. I remember that detail so clearly, like my eyes latched onto it because my mind didn't know what else to do. The chair wasn't rocking. The girl wasn't moving either, just sitting there like she'd been placed in the chair and left. At first, I couldn't really make out her face, but the longer I stared, the sharper everything became. And when I finally saw her, like really saw her, my stomach just dropped. Her expression was stuck, not angry, not sad, just pure fear, locked in place like the moment had been frozen on her face. Her eyes were completely black, like the light didn't touch them at all. And her mouth was open way too wide, stretched into this silent scream that looked like it had been going on forever. I tried to scream. I swear to you, I tried. My chest tightened, my throat burned, and nothing came out. Not even a whisper. Then I tried to move. I couldn't. My whole body felt pinned down, like the mattress had turned into wet concrete. I could barely breathe, just these shallow little breaths, and all I could do was stare at her while she stared back at me. She didn't blink, not once. And time did this weird thing, like it stopped being time. Maybe it was a minute, maybe it was 20. It felt like hours. The room felt colder, quieter, like the entire house was holding its breath along with me. And then, she was gone. Not fading away, not moving, just gone. One moment there was a girl in a chair, and the next the chair was empty like it had never held anything at all. The second she vanished, it was like a switch flipped inside me. My body unlocked. I sucked in air, and I screamed so hard it hurt, like the sound had been trapped inside me and finally exploded out. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat there, shaking, staring at the empty space where she'd been, trying to force my brain to pick the safe answer. Nightmare, imagination, sleep paralysis, whatever you want to call it. And honestly, that almost worked. Until morning. Because downstairs smelled like cinnamon toast and coffee. Warm, normal, harmless. My brothers, Milo and Carter, were tearing through breakfast like nothing in the universe had ever been scary. Everything looked so ordinary that I started doubting myself again, right up until I sat at the table and the memory of her face hit me like a wave. So I told my mom. Her name's Elise. I expected her to laugh a little and brush my hair back and tell me it was just a bad dream. But she didn't. She got quiet. Like, too quiet. Crying. Or what she thought was crying. But she said it didn't sound like any of us. And parents know the sound of their kids crying. She said this was different. Warped. Almost like a child crying through a broken speaker. Or like the sound was coming from the wrong direction inside the air. She told me she got out of bed and followed it into the hallway. Our parents' room was on the second floor, and we kids slept upstairs. She said the sound pulled her toward the staircase leading up to our rooms. And when she reached the stairs, it stopped. Instantly. No footsteps, no creak of stairs, no door closing. Just silence, like someone hit a mute button. We never saw the girl again. We never heard anything like that again either. But here's the part that still makes my skin prickle when I think about it. That rocking chair? It wasn't in my bedroom that night. It wasn't even in the house. My mom brought it home later, after that night, because she'd found it at a yard sale the next day and thought it was cute. So yeah, call it sleep paralysis if you want. But I wasn't the only one awake. And I still don't know what I saw. What do you think it was? So this happened years ago, and it's one of those stories that's equal parts creepy and ridiculous. Like, I laugh when I tell it now, but in the moment, I was not laughing. I'm originally from Slovakia, from this tiny village where everybody knows everybody. And our family house is kind of a standout. It's a two-story place, which isn't super common there. Most homes are one level, cozy, practical, nothing fancy. But my grandpa, Milan, built this one with an upstairs and everything. Here's the part that matters. Milan lived in it for only a short time before he left for England in the early 90s to work and try to build a better life. The house stayed mostly quiet after that. Family would come and go, but it wasn't like someone lived there full time. Not long after Milan left, one of his friends, let's call him Rado, ended up in serious trouble. Rado got mixed up with drugs, owed money to the wrong kind of people, and those people were the kind who don't just remind you, they hunt you. So Milan, being who he is, told him, "Stay at the house, don't pay anything, just be safe." He figured the village was quiet enough, and the house was tucked away enough that nobody would find him. They found him anyway. They beat him badly and told him he had a week to pay them back, or they'd kill him. When Milan heard, he panicked and said something like, "You need to leave, go far, go somewhere they can't reach you." But Rado took it differently, like Milan was kicking him out when he needed him most. A few days passed with no contact, and Milan got this horrible feeling. He called his brother, Vlado, and asked him to go check the house. And Vlado found him, hanging from the ceiling upstairs, right above the staircase. The kind of thing that rewires your brain, you know? Milan came back for the funeral and cleaned the place up himself, but the house never felt the same after that. Even if nobody said it out loud, it sat in the air. Fast forward to the early 2010s. Our family started this tradition of spending summers back home. It was just the four of us most years, so we always slept downstairs and barely used the upstairs at all. Upstairs was basically storage and vibes we don't need. Then one summer, around 2012 I think, my aunt was getting married, and suddenly the house was packed with relatives. People sleeping everywhere, extra mattresses, blankets on couches, suitcases stacked like a weird obstacle course. And that's when my cousin Tomasz and I got assigned the upstairs bedroom. We were actually excited because we hadn't seen each other in forever. It felt like a sleepover. Just the two of us up there, plus my grandparents in another room. Everyone else was downstairs. That evening, Tomasz and I were watching some horror movie, one of those loud, stupid ones where you can tell something's coming and you still jump anyway. And at some point, my grandpa Milan pokes his head in, half smiling, and goes, "You boys want to hear a real horror story?" Of course we say yes, because we're teenagers and we think we're brave. And he tells us. He tells us about Rado, about the debt, the beating, the week-long ultimatum. And then he just casually stands up and goes, "Come here." He leads us out into the hallway and points over the staircase, right up at the ceiling beam area, and goes, "That's where he was." Like he's pointing out where a picture frame used to hang. And then, he adds, almost like an afterthought, "He was here for days before anyone found him." After that, upstairs didn't feel like a fun sleepover anymore. It felt like we've been placed in a museum exhibit called Bad Decisions, featuring ghosts. We tried to act normal and go to bed, but I couldn't sleep at all. My brain kept doing that thing where it replays the image you don't want. Like I'm picturing this man hanging over the staircase just watching anyone who walks up and down. So I do what any genius does in a haunted house. I distract myself. I plugged in my console and played this zombie game mode for a while, just trying to get tired enough to stop thinking. Eventually, I passed out. And I'm not exaggerating. I slept maybe an hour. Then I woke up. Not from a nightmare, not from the wind, not from someone snoring. No, from a sound. This quiet, strained, sliding sound. Like something tightening. Like something being pulled. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but later I could only describe it one way. It sounded like a rope being pulled taut. I opened my eyes. And there, right in the corner of the room, was a figure. A man. Hanging. Facing away from me, slightly turned like he belonged there, like it was normal, like it was his room and I was the guest. My whole body locked up. I couldn't even breathe properly. I reached over and tried to shake Tomasz awake, hard, because I'm thinking, if he sees it too, it's real. But he wouldn't move. He was completely out cold. And my brain, my brilliant survival brain, decides I have exactly one weapon in this situation: panic and whatever is within arm's reach. So I start throwing things. First my controller, then my water bottle. Then, because fear makes you creative, I grab my socks and whip those too. Like I'm trying to defeat the undead with laundry. After the socks hit the corner, I dove under the blanket and just stayed there, breathing like I'd run a marathon. And I could still hear it, the faint shifting, the creak, the quiet movement like the rope was swaying. I don't even remember falling asleep again. I think my brain just shut off to save itself. Morning comes. Light in the room, sounds of people downstairs, life continuing like normal. I lie there for a minute, frozen, then I slowly look over at the corner. Nothing. No man, no rope, no shadow, no anything. And for one tiny moment I think, okay, dream. Horror movie plus Grandpa's story equals nightmare. Then I sit up. And I see my controller on the floor, my water bottle too, and my socks, exactly where they landed when I threw them. My stomach drops all over again. But the real final punch, the thing that made my skin go prickly even at breakfast, was what Milan said later, like it was a totally normal observation. He looks at me over his coffee and goes, "Why were you moving around so much last night? And throwing things?" And I just stared at him. Because if it was a dream, why did he hear it? So yeah, that's the story. Now when I tell it, I try to make it funny because it sounds insane. I'll be like, yeah, I fought off a ghost with socks. Like I'm some kind of budget paranormal investigator. But honestly, it still creeps me out. And whenever we go back to Slovakia, I stay with other family if I can. Because I don't care how grown I get. If someone offers me the upstairs bedroom in that house, no thank you. Not unless I'm bringing extra socks. So, we moved into this new place because we needed a clean slate. New neighborhood, new walls, new routines, just a fresh start. And I remember telling myself, this is it. This is where things get better. But the very first night, before we'd even finished stacking boxes, something felt off. Not like a squeaky floor, old house settling kind of off. I mean, the kind where your skin stays prickled even when you're standing in full light. Like you're not alone, even when you know you're alone. And it wasn't just one room. It was everywhere. Kitchen, hallway, laundry room, didn't matter. I could be brushing my teeth at 2 a.m. or folding towels at noon, and that same heavy feeling would settle over me, like a hand on the back of my neck. Being watched. Constantly. For the first week, though, nothing happened, which almost made it worse. We were unpacking, hanging curtains, trying to make the bedrooms feel cozy. My little girl, Marin, was excited about her new room. She'd twirl in it like it was a princess tower, and I'd smile and pretend I wasn't scanning the corners. Then, on the seventh day, I was at the kitchen sink rinsing a plate, and that pressure came back, sudden and thick, like the air had changed texture. My hands slowed, my stomach dropped, and I don't even know why, but I turned my head toward the hallway like something pulled my attention that way. At the end of the hall, I saw her, just for a heartbeat. A woman dressed head to toe in pale linen, almost glowing against the shadow. She didn't walk like a normal person either. It was more like she glided, quiet, smooth, and she slipped into Marin's bedroom like it belonged to her. I didn't think. I just ran. I tore down that hallway so fast my feet slid on the wood, and I burst into Marin's room, ready to scream, ready to fight, ready for anything. But there was nothing. No woman, no movement, no open closet, no curtain swaying. Just Marin, sleeping like an angel, her little chest rising and falling like the world was completely safe. I picked her up anyway, immediately. My arms were shaking so hard I could barely hold her steady, and I sat with her the rest of the night in the living room, lights on, heart hammering, telling myself over and over, "You're tired, you're stressed, you're imagining things." Except I wasn't. After that, the house didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt hostile, like it didn't want us there. I started hearing things, small, precise sounds that didn't match the normal life of a home. Soft tapping from Marin's room, like fingernails against wood. Whispering too, but always just under the edge of clarity, like the house was trying to speak without letting me understand. It happened in the afternoon. It happened at 3 a.m. It happened while I was standing right outside her door, holding my breath, listening so hard my ears ached. And I didn't see the woman again for a while. Not clearly. Not until our last day in that house. It was broad daylight, sun coming through the windows, totally ordinary, almost mocking in how normal it looked. I put Marin down for her nap, tucked her blanket around her shoulders, kissed her forehead, and walked back to the living room trying, really trying, to act like a person with a normal life. I hit play on a movie, and within seconds I paused it, because I heard crying. It wasn't Marin's usual cry. It sounded wrong, thin, strained, like someone trying to imitate a child but not quite getting it. I stood frozen, remote in my hand, listening down the hallway. And then it stopped, just cut off, like someone flipped a switch. And then, a slam. So loud it rattled something in the kitchen, Marin's bedroom door. And right after that, her scream tore through the house. Pure terror. The kind of scream that isn't just crying, it's a warning. It's a child begging the world to help them. I flew off the couch and ran. I grabbed the doorknob and yanked. It wouldn't open. I pulled again, harder. My shoulder braced against the frame. Nothing. Like it was locked, except we didn't lock it. It didn't even have a lock. Then, I felt the doorknob move. Not because I moved it, because someone on the other side did. It started twisting back and forth in my hand, jerking violently like another hand had clamped onto it and was fighting me. I'm not kidding. I could feel the resistance through the metal. I could feel the force. Panic hit me so fast my vision narrowed. I threw my body into the door, once, twice, until my shoulder burned and my breath came out in these short animal bursts. It felt like pushing against a wall that wasn't supposed to exist, like the door had turned solid. And then, all at once, it released. The door flew open so hard it slammed into the wall behind it and punched a huge hole through the drywall. I just stared for half a second, stunned by the impact, the dust, the jagged edge of plaster. Marin was in the corner of her room, folded in on herself, shaking. Her face was red and wet. She was sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe properly. She pointed at her little desk, her finger trembling like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and she kept saying, "She's there, Mommy. The lady's there. She tried to hurt me." I didn't argue. I didn't question. I didn't try to be logical. I grabbed her, and that was it. That was the moment I stopped trying to make it make sense. I packed what I could, fast, bare essentials, a bag of clothes, important papers, and we left. Immediately. We didn't sleep there again. Not once. When we came back for our things, I never came alone. Not ever. And the worst part? Leaving that house didn't feel like the end, because for years after, 15, 16 years, there were other moments, other places, that same sick feeling of being watched, and sometimes, in the corner of my eye, a woman in light clothing, and a man too, always in a suit, always just there, like he'd been waiting. So, yeah, if you want, I can tell you about the other things that happened after that. There's more. A lot more. So, my grandparents have this big, kind of creaky old house out in the Landes region of France. Lots of heavy wood, long hallways, that this place has seen 100 winters feeling. And I need to say this up front. I've always felt weird in that house. Like, not I'm imagining things because it's dark weird, but this steady, low-level sense that I'm being watched or followed, even when nothing is happening. To this day, I still hate going upstairs alone there, even in the middle of the day. It's embarrassing to admit, but it's true. Whenever we visit, it's usually me, my parents, and my younger brother all sleeping in the same upstairs room. The way the beds are arranged is kind of odd. My bed and my brother's bed are set up head to head, with a little divider between us. So if we're both lying down, we can't actually see each other at all unless one of us sits up and twists around. This happened during winter break. Might have been right around New Year's, because I remember the house being freezing and everyone sleeping extra hard. I woke up in the middle of the night for no reason, just snapped awake. I was facing the wall, and for a second I did that thing where you're not sure if you're awake yet, like you're hovering between sleep and real life. Then I turned over, and I swear to you, the moment I looked toward the middle of the room, my stomach just dropped. My brother, well, Hugo, I'll call him, was sitting on the floor beside the beds. Just sitting there like it was totally normal. And he was staring straight at me with his eyes opened way too wide. And he had this stretched, teeth-showing smile on his face, like he was trying to freak me out on purpose. And the thing is, when we were little, he used to do this stupid face to annoy me, this exact kind of grin. But he'd grown out of it ages ago, which somehow made it worse because it felt deliberate, like whoever or whatever I was looking at was copying something it knew would get under my skin. My first thought was sleepwalking, because he actually used to have episodes when he was younger, like real ones, wandering, talking nonsense, the whole thing. So even though I was terrified, I tried to force my brain into, okay, this is explainable. Still lying there, I reached over and shook my mom's shoulder. I whispered like, Mom, wake up, please. Hugo's up again. He's sleepwalking and it's really creeping me out. She stirred, sat up a little, and squinted around the room, all groggy and confused. Then she just said, super casually, What are you talking about? He's in bed. And I remember getting angry for a second. Like, no, he isn't. He's right there. Are you seriously not seeing this? So I looked back toward the spot on the floor, ready to prove it. And it was empty. Just empty floor. Nothing there. My whole body went cold. I sat up fast, staring at where he had been, like maybe he'd crawled away or ducked behind something. Then I looked up at his bed, and Hugo was there, curled up, breathing slowly, completely still, sleeping so peacefully it was almost insulting. I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there staring into the dark, replaying it over and over, trying to find the moment where it could have been a dream. But here's the part that still messes with me. I wasn't half asleep. I wasn't fuzzy. I remember the exact angle of his shoulders, the way his eyes looked too bright, the ridiculous amount of teeth in that grin. It lasted long enough for me to wake my mom, for her to look around, for me to look back again. It felt physical, like he was really there. So I don't know what it was. All I know is that house already made my skin crawl. And after that night, it stopped being just a creepy old house feeling. It felt personal. Okay, so for a little context, when my partner Evan bought this house, there was this room in the basement that technically couldn't be listed as a real bedroom. You know, no closet, weird layout, all those rules. But the woman who lived here before, Marjorie, she made that room her bedroom anyway. And it wasn't even a cozy basement room. It was painted this dull, grimy tan, like old coffee with too much cream, and the floor was just bare concrete. There were these half-built-in wooden shelves along one wall with her folded clothes and little trinkets lined up like she'd been living out of storage. And what made it stranger is, there were perfectly normal rooms upstairs, like actual bedrooms. And the laundry was upstairs too. So I still don't understand why she chose the basement, in the one room that felt like it was never meant for people. The room didn't even have a proper ceiling, just exposed beams and pipes. And the only window was this tiny horizontal rectangle near the back, maybe 3 feet wide and not even a foot tall. It barely counted as a window, more like a suggestion of daylight. Anyway, we'd heard Marjorie passed away in the house. I never got a clean story, just bits and pieces from neighbors. And right before Evan closed on the house, her son died too, suddenly. I didn't know him, didn't know the details, but it added this heavy feeling to the whole place when we first moved in. Like the house had been through something, and it hadn't decided whether it was done holding on to it yet. So one day, while we're moving my things in, we needed this big plastic tote that we'd stuck down in that basement room. It was just me and Evan that day. My daughter was at school, and this was before my son was born, so the house felt extra quiet. Evan was upstairs sorting boxes, doing that focused, please don't talk to me unless the house is on fire organizing thing. I run downstairs, and I'm already telling myself, just grab the tote and go back up, because I hated that room. I didn't even want to look at it too long. I open the basement door, head down, and when I step into that room, of course, it's completely black. We'd already replaced the light bulb down there before, but for some reason the bulbs in that room never lasted. They'd burn out insanely fast, like the room just ate them. And that day I didn't have my phone on me either. I'd left it upstairs like an idiot. So now I'm standing there in pitch darkness, and my brain is doing the classic horror movie thing where it goes, you should definitely walk farther in. Because I knew the little window was in the back. I figured if I could just get to it, I could pull the curtain and get a little light. And I hate the dark. Like, I've always hated it. The kind where you can't even see your hands? It makes my skin crawl. But I go anyway, carefully stepping around random stuff we'd shoved in there. An old welcome mat, a folded-up workout machine, some bags, loose boxes. Just enough clutter to make you feel like you'll trip if you panic. I finally reach the back wall, find the curtain, and I pull it open. And there's a foam board pressed against the window, like someone had intentionally blocked it. And the second I register that, like the exact second my brain goes, why is that there? The door behind me slams shut. Not a gentle click, Not a slow drift, a full, sharp, violent slam, like someone threw their whole weight into it. I screamed, like real screamed. The kind that surprises you because you didn't know you had that sound in you and it won't open. At first I'm like, okay, it's stuck. But then it's not just stuck, it feels held, like there's pressure on the other side, like someone has their hand against it. I twist again, pull, twist, pull, over and over. My heart is pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears, and I start yelling, screaming, "Evan, stop, let me out!" Because my first thought is, oh my God, he's pranking me. But it wasn't like him. He wasn't a prank person. And even in that moment, part of me knew it wasn't him. But I didn't have anything else to grab onto, so I clung to that explanation anyway. Until I heard footsteps, fast footsteps, heavy, frantic, coming down the stairs. And Evan is yelling, "Let go of the knob! Let go!" Which confused me so badly I almost didn't listen, but his voice sounded scared, not playful, not laughing, scared. So I let go and back up into the middle of the room, shaking. And then I hear him on the other side of the door, him throwing his shoulder into it, kicking it, slamming into it again and again, and the door doesn't move. That's the part that still makes me feel sick when I remember it. Because if it was just a door drifting shut, fine. Old house, weird draft, whatever. But Evan couldn't open it from the outside either. He had to break it. He kicked until the frame cracked, until the whole thing finally gave way. And when it did, I ran out so fast I almost fell into him. I was crying so hard I couldn't even get full sentences out, just shaking and trying to breathe. He kept saying, "What happened? What happened?" Like he truly had no idea. And once I finally explained about the foam board, the slam, the knob not moving, he just stared at me, and I could tell he didn't have an explanation either, not a comfortable one. We went upstairs immediately, and I told him dead serious that I never wanted to step foot in that room again. Later, we heard more about Marjorie, and some people hinted she may have died down there. I don't know if that's true. I still don't have a straight answer, but that room has always felt wrong. Like the air is slightly off, like you're intruding. And it wasn't just me. After we renovated the basement a bit, new floors, fresh paint, I brought my 2 older sisters down to see it. I didn't say anything about what happened. I didn't want to influence them, and both of them kept drifting toward that same room, like it pulled them. At one point, we were standing nearby and the door just closed on its own. Slow, casual, like someone finished walking through it. My oldest sister is the "I want to believe but also I need logic" type. My other sister is more open to paranormal stuff, and both of them looked at each other like, okay, that was something. Then there was this night we had friends over. We played this game that's basically like a real-life mystery game in the dark. 8 of us total, running around the house with the lights off, and 3 of us ended up hiding in that basement bedroom at different points. Afterward, we're all sitting around talking about where we hid, who we bumped into, all that post-game chatter. And multiple friends said the same thing. They said when they entered that room, it felt like someone else was already in there with them. One friend even swore something brushed their ankles, like a cat weaving around their legs. But our cat was upstairs, and he's loud. Trust me, we would have known if he was down there. So, yeah, could the house be settling? Sure. Could the door have been a pressure thing, or a weird latch, or a warped frame? Maybe. Could the light bulbs have been some electrical issue? Absolutely. But here's what messes with me. After Evan started renovating that room to turn it into an office, the light bulbs stopped burning out. They last for months now, and if you stay in the basement long enough, there's this feeling like you're being watched. Not generally, not vaguely, like it's coming from a specific corner. And you can tell yourself whatever you want. Your brain is playing tricks, It's just the shadows. It's just a creepy basement. But the feeling doesn't go away. It just waits there with you. So, let me set the scene a little, because the layout matters. Last year, I was in the hospital for a bit, and the ward I was on had these single rooms. Everyone got their own space. My bed sat kind of centered, pushed up against the wall, and there was a TV mounted in front of it. To the right of the bed was the main door, and it had that little nurse window in it, like they could slide it open and check on you without actually stepping inside. Diagonally to the right was the bathroom, and on the left side of the room there were a couple benches, this big window looking out at the night, and a worn lounge chair that looked like it had seen 1,000 exhausted visitors fall asleep in it. Anyway, it was late. The kind of late where the building feels hollow. They had me on some pretty heavy medication, and it made my body feel like it was sinking into the mattress. I remember drifting off, the kind of sleep where you don't even realize you're gone until you're suddenly not. And then, I woke up. I don't know what woke me. I didn't hear a crash or a voice or anything like that. I just opened my eyes and immediately felt that weird, someone's here awareness, like your brain catches it before your heart does. And that's when I saw it. A figure, humanoid, tall, about the height of an adult man, maybe a little taller. It wasn't standing over me like in a dramatic way. It was leaning, like it was peeking in at me from the side, almost playful about it. That's the part that still messes with me. The energy felt giddy, like it was amused that I could see it. The face is the clearest thing in my memory. It was pale, chalky pale, almost washed out, like it didn't belong under normal lighting. The eyes were what really stuck with me. Red and irritated, like they were bloodshot from lack of sleep, or like they didn't sit quite right. Not fully falling out or anything, but wrong in a way I can't perfectly explain without sounding dramatic. And it was dressed in dark clothes. I remember black sleeves, black body, and I think it had something on its head, like a cap or a small brimmed hat. But that detail comes and goes in my memory like it's blurred at the edges. It didn't speak. It didn't lunge. It just peeked, like it was hiding and playing a little game. Like, oh, you're awake. You see me. And then I swear, the moment after that is gone. Like a hard cut in a film. Next thing I knew, I snapped back and I was drenched in sweat. Like the sheets were damp. My shirt was sticking to me. Everything. My heart wasn't racing the way you'd expect after a nightmare, though. That's another thing that makes it hard to categorize. I wasn't terrified in the moment. I was confused. Like my mind kept going, what was that? What did I just see? Even now, thinking about it, I don't get the usual fear reaction. No screaming, no panic, none of that. It's more like my skin crawls when I talk about it. Like my body remembers something my brain can't fully file away. And I wasn't the only one, which is what makes it harder to shrug off. There were stories from other patients too, little comments people would drop in passing. One guy, Marcus I think his name was, said he'd had weird nights in that wing. A nurse mentioned, kind of casually, that some people get vivid experiences when they're medicated or stressed or half asleep. But when you're the one it happens to, it doesn't feel like a fun little explanation. It feels personal. And then there were the doors. I also heard this rumor, more than once, that before the hospital was built, people came out to the land to bless it. Protection rituals, prayers, that sort of thing. Different patients said it like it was a known thing, like the story had been passed around for years. So I don't know. Was it a hallucination from the medication? A half-dream? Something my brain built out of exhaustion and fluorescent lighting and silence? Or was it something else. I'll be honest, I've always been open to paranormal stuff. Spirits, entities, the occult, all of it. I'm not someone who automatically laughs it off, but I'm also not trying to force it into a ghost story if there's a real-world explanation. I just can't shake the feeling of how real it looked, and how deliberately it seemed to be watching me. And the weirdest part is, even though I wasn't scared that night, I still think about it now, like a memory with teeth, like something peeked in, saw me notice it, and enjoyed being seen. Okay, so I literally made this account because I cannot get this out of my head, and I just need to talk it through like I'm telling a friend. It's late. Well, technically early. It's around 4:20 a.m. where I am, GMT3, and I know the exact time doesn't matter, but I'm kind of clinging to details to keep myself calm. So, quick context. I live in an apartment building, and for a while now I've had this uneasy feeling at home. Not like boo spooky all the time, more like a quiet, weird pressure. Sometimes I wake up with my heart racing for no reason, like I'm startled awake by something I can't even name. There have been other little moments, but none of them compare to what just happened tonight. I went to bed around midnight, totally normal. I put my phone down, rolled onto my side, and just fell asleep. No scary movie, no creepy podcast, nothing. Calm. Then, out of nowhere, I wake up. And I'm not fully awake at first. You know that half-dreamy state where your eyes are open, but your brain is still catching up. I was kind of curled up on my left side, face turned slightly down toward the pillow. And then I see someone. At first it wasn't like, bam, a person. It was more like my vision assembled the shape in front of me. Like my eyes focused and the outline sharpened, shoulders, torso, arms. And when it fully clicked into place, I was face to face with a man I have never seen in my life. He was dressed really formally, like a dark suit, neat, like he was going to a business meeting or a wedding or something. And the part that makes my stomach turn even now is that he was smiling at me. Not a huge grin, just this calm little smile, like he was waiting for me to notice him. And I swear, I saw his lips move, like he was talking or trying to say something, but I couldn't hear anything. No sound at all. He was positioned kind of close, like he was leaning in from the side of the bed, propped on one arm, or both arms? I'm honestly not sure because everything happened so fast. I froze, like full body freeze. I don't even remember if I flinched back or leaned closer out of panic. My brain just kind of locked up. And then I blinked, and he was gone. Not like faded away, not like moved into the shadows, just gone, instantly, like someone turned off a screen. From the moment I woke up to the moment he disappeared, it couldn't have been more than a couple seconds. The second he vanished, my body kicked back on and I shot up. I basically launched myself out of bed and went straight into my living room and dining area, like I was going to, I don't know, catch him? Confront him? I have no idea what I thought I'd do if I actually saw a stranger standing there. But I checked anyway, corners, doorway, everything. Nothing. No one. So I went back to bed, and for a moment I tried to laugh it off in my head like, okay, cool, my brain is glitching. Sleepy hallucination. Whatever. But it felt too real. The detail, the closeness, the expression on his face, like I met eyes with him. I started shaking when I replayed it, like actual trembling. The more I tried to explain it away, the more my body was like, nope, nope, that was not nothing. And here's another detail that's messing with me. My cat, his name is Juniper, sleeps with me every night. He was right there on the bed, near where the man was. And when all this happened, Juniper didn't react at all. He didn't perk up, didn't stare, didn't move like something was in the room. He was just normal. Which is honestly the only reason I can even consider that it might have been my brain doing something weird. I don't know. I just need someone who actually knows about this kind of thing. Sleep stuff, brain stuff, anything. To tell me what that could have been. Because if there's an explanation, I want it. And if there isn't, I don't even know what I'll do with that. Anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm still awake, still tense, and I'm trying to convince myself I'm safe in my own apartment. Good night, I guess. So, before I tell you what happened this morning, I should give you a little context, because without it, I know it sounds unreal. I've been dipping in and out of meditation for a while now. For a time, I was really deep into it, experimenting with things like remote viewing and guided audio sessions that are meant to shift your awareness. I don't do it as consistently anymore, but lately I've come back to it for a very specific reason. I've been trying to quiet down the PTSD that's been hanging around after a hospital incident a few months back. I have a rare condition called achalasia. Basically, swallowing is a fight. Food, water, anything. And in early autumn, during what was supposed to be a routine procedure, something went catastrophically wrong. There was a mistake, and an artery got nicked. Everything went into emergency mode. I lost a lot of blood. They had to rush me into surgery. I survived, obviously, but I didn't come out the same. Since then, my symptoms have gotten so much worse. I've dropped a scary amount of weight, and I've got this long, angry scar stretching across my abdomen, a physical reminder of a moment I genuinely could have died. Fast forward to yesterday. I nearly ended up back in hospital because I was so dehydrated. Even drinking water can be painful and exhausting, and I could feel myself slipping into that danger zone again. And then, this morning happened. I was at my desk, meditating like I usually do, nothing dramatic. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't drifting. I was fully aware of the room, the sounds around me, the feeling of the chair under me. I knew exactly where I was. And in that clear, awake space, I felt a presence. It wasn't vague. It wasn't just a sense. It was like someone had walked into the room. When I opened my awareness to it, I saw this small being, almost like it had stepped out of a storybook. The best way I can describe it is a little creature with the look of a calf or a small bull, but not in a realistic way. More like a gentle, mythic version of one. It had thick fur and these curled horns that framed its head. And on the horns, this is the part that sticks with me, there were these strange ornaments, like hoops or big circular bands, the way earrings might hang, except they were set into the horn itself. It climbed up onto me like it belonged there, like it wasn't asking permission. It settled right on my stomach, directly over the scar. And I remember thinking immediately, why there? Why that spot? Then it looked straight at me, not past me, not through me, at me. And with this calm, deliberate motion, it traced a symbol in the air, this bright, electric neon blue that honestly felt like light you could touch. It drew a crescent moon over my scar, but not the way you usually picture a crescent. The points were angled upward, like a bowl. And underneath it, there was this glow, like the crescent was being lit from below, the way the sun makes the edge of the moon shine at night. It was so vivid it felt impossible. It finished the shape, paused like it was setting it into place, and just held my gaze for a second longer, steady, almost reassuring. Like, that's done. That's enough. You're okay. And then it was gone. No dramatic exit, no jump scare moment, just gone, like it had never been there at all. But even with that awareness, this didn't feel like a dream. It didn't feel like sleep. It didn't feel like imagination. It felt like an encounter. And the part I can't ignore, because it's the part that made me sit back and go cold, is what happened afterward. Since that moment, I've been able to drink water like I haven't been able to in a long time. Not perfectly, not like I'm suddenly cured, but noticeably easier. Less pain, less resistance. Enough that I caught myself thinking, wait, what? And then I just kept drinking, almost scared it would stop if I focused too hard on it. After yesterday, that shouldn't have been possible for me today. So now I'm stuck in this strange space. I'm in awe of it, honestly. And I'm also trying to understand it. I looked up folklore and symbols, and the closest match I could find was this horned figure from old mythology, Cernunnos. But the fit isn't perfect, and I can't figure out why anything like that would show up to someone like me, in my little ordinary life, sitting at a desk trying to breathe through trauma. I don't know what it was. I just know it came straight to the wound, straight to the place where I was cut open to be saved, and it left a bright blue crescent like a mark, like a blessing, like a stitch of light. And ever since, something has shifted. Even saying it out loud makes me feel a little ridiculous, but I also can't pretend it didn't happen. So that's why I'm telling you. Because if you've ever had something like this, something that sits right on the line between the unexplainable and the psychological, I'd genuinely love to know how you make sense of it. Because right now, all I can do is hold it carefully and admit the truth. Whatever it was, it felt real. So, I used to live in this really old place, like proper old. It was in the historic part of downtown, brick and creaky and full of those little quirks that come with buildings that have been around forever. You know? I remember looking it up once and seeing it dated back to the 1890s, give or take. Anyway, this happened a few years back, and it was two separate moments in the same night that still stick with me. The first one was early, just a normal evening thing. I was in my tiny galley kitchen, the kind where you can basically touch both counters if you stretch your arms out. I put the kettle on because my partner, Mara, was already in the bedroom, winding down, and I wanted to bring her some tea. And for whatever reason, I didn't turn the lights on. I was perched on the counter facing the stove, letting the quiet sit around me. Just the soft hiss of the burner and that almost silence you get late at night. Then, out of nowhere, I felt this blast of cold right on the back of my neck. Not like, oh, the window must be cracked, or the fan shifted. No, this was sharp. Like something had leaned in close and exhaled, and the air itself had teeth. Every hair on my arms stood up. I swear I got goosebumps instantly, like my body reacted before my brain even caught up. I spun around, half expecting, I don't know what. A prank? A person? Something explainable. But there was nothing. Just my dark kitchen, the hallway beyond it, and that thick, old building quiet. We did have a ceiling fan going in the other room, but this wasn't that. This was colder than the room had any business being. I remember just sitting there for a second, blinking like, what was that? Then I turned the light on, watched the kettle like it had personally offended me, and tried to shake it off. I brought the tea down the hall, gave Mara a quick kiss, and didn't even mention it at first because it sounded ridiculous. Like, hey, the kitchen just breathed on me, you know? But then came the second thing. And this is where it gets weird, because I am a champion sleeper. Like, if the world ends, I'm probably still drooling into my pillow. I don't wake up in the middle of the night unless something really pulls me out of sleep. That night, I woke up suddenly. No slow drifting up, no groggy half-dream, just awake. I glanced at the clock and it was somewhere around 3 a.m., maybe a little after. The room was dark, the kind of dark where you can barely tell where the furniture ends and the shadows begin. I turned my head, got my bearings, and then I noticed something at the foot of the bed. A shape. Not a pile of clothes, not a trick of moonlight. A shape with a presence. And here's the part I can't really explain. I immediately knew two things without thinking. One, whatever it was a child. And two, it wasn't threatening. At all. It looked like a little girl, maybe 8-ish, and it wasn't solid the way a person is solid. More like a pale outline, faintly luminous, like the air was trying to remember her shape. No clear facial features, no clothes I could describe, just this soft, hazy silhouette that still somehow read as her. We looked at each other for a few seconds. It felt longer than it probably was, maybe 4 or 5 beats of complete stillness. And I wasn't scared. That's what throws me off, even now. Because if you tell me a strange figure was in your bedroom at 3 a.m., the expected reaction is terror. But what I felt was calm, curious, almost like the moment had its own quiet rules, like fear wasn't allowed in the room. Then she moved, and I just lay there, wide awake, staring at the doorway. I remember thinking, very plainly, okay, that was strange. No screaming, no jumping up, no shaking Mara awake. I just lay there for a minute trying to replay it, trying to make it make sense. And then, somehow, I fell back asleep. And honestly, that's the part that makes me believe it happened. Because if I'd been half dreaming, if it was sleep paralysis or whatever, I feel like it would have been drenched in panic. But it wasn't. It felt like an encounter. Brief, mutual, quiet. Years later, like not immediately but a while after, Mara and I went on one of those walking tours downtown, the kind where the guide tells you history with a little drama sprinkled in. And we ended up stopping outside my building. The guide pointed up and started talking about how the upper floor used to be heavier back then, how parts of the building had been renovated more than once. And then she said it. That a long time ago, early 1900s I think, part of the top floor gave way, collapsed, and a little girl died. Right there, on the same level I lived on. I remember my stomach doing this slow drop as the guide talked. She said the girl was around 8 years old, and I just stood there, staring at my own windows, feeling that cold from the kitchen all over again, not on my neck this time, but in my chest. I'm not saying I know what I saw. I don't. I can't prove it, and I'm not interested in forcing a story where there isn't one. But I also can't ignore how it felt. It didn't feel evil. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt like curiosity, like she noticed me, and I noticed her, and for a few seconds we shared the same space, quietly, gently, before she went on her way. And that's what stays with me more than anything. Not fear, just that strange, calm moment in the dark. Like the building had a memory, and for one night, it decided to let me see it. So, I'm usually the kind of person who just reads everyone else's stories and keeps my own to myself. But I've had a handful of weird little moments at my Aunt Diane's place that I can't stop thinking about, and I figured I'd finally tell someone. Diane and her husband travel a decent amount, and whenever they head out of town, she asks me to come house sit and watch their dog Toby. It's a sweet setup, honestly. The house is in a quiet suburban neighborhood, everything's comfortable, and Toby is basically a fluffy little security guard who follows you everywhere. But here's the thing. No matter how many times I've stayed there, I always end up exhausted. Nighttime in that house just flips a switch in me. I get this creeping paranoia once it gets dark, especially if I'm alone in a room. My partner, Miles, usually stays with me, which helps, but even then, I don't know. I've always had an overactive imagination, and growing up I had a few odd experiences here and there, but the stuff that happens in Diane's house feels unusually specific. The guest bedroom is where we sleep, and it has this vibe. Not haunted mansion vibes, more like old memories tucked into corners. Diane keeps a few vintage dolls and little knickknacks on a shelf, and there's this chunky old TV with a built-in VHS player. It's kind of charming in a retro way, but it also makes me feel like I'm stepping into someone else's past. The last time we stayed, I walked into that guest room in the early afternoon. Bright daylight, totally normal. And I said something out loud, kind of casually. Like, "Hey, if there's anything here that can hear me, thanks for letting us stay. I appreciate it." And immediately, no pause, no build-up, I hear a couple of knocks. Like 2, maybe 3, coming from the wall right next to me. I froze. Not in a dramatic movie way, more like my brain just went blank for a second. Then I was like, "Okay, cool, thank you." And I backed out of the room as politely as if I'd interrupted someone's nap. I literally closed the door and just didn't go back in for a while. I'm not proud. I'm also not sorry. Later that day, Miles put in a VHS tape, A Bug's Life, because comfort movies are a thing, and it was playing fine. At some point, I went into the guest room to grab my phone off the bed. The second I walked past the TV, the movie stopped. Not paused, stopped. And then the tape started rewinding. By itself. You know how VHS rewinding has that fast, mechanical sound? That whirring, like the machine is suddenly awake? It rewound all the way until it clicked and just quit. Like it had reached some decision. I got this full-body chill that made my skin feel tight. I didn't stand there to investigate like a brave person. I turned the TV off with shaky fingers and left the room again like, nope, not today. The basement is where things get even stranger for me because it's actually a really nice hangout space. There's a pool table down there, and I love playing. Miles starts work earlier than I do, so sometimes he'll head to bed while I stay up for a bit and shoot a quick solo game before I turn in. 2 things happened during the last stay that I can't explain away, even though I keep trying. The first was small, but it made my stomach drop for some reason. We'd been going down to the basement for a few days at that point, walking back and forth, playing pool, messing around. And then one afternoon, I noticed a single marble sitting right in the middle of the walkway between the pool table and the wall. Just there, like it had been placed. But something about it felt off, like it didn't belong to the house's normal clutter. It looked too deliberate. I picked it up, turned it over in my fingers, and I swear I got that same prickly, someone's watching me feeling. I ended up putting it away somewhere safe, like I was gently confiscating evidence. The second thing happened a night or 2 later, and it's the one that really got to me. There's a bathroom in the basement, diagonal from the pool table. That night, the bathroom door was mostly closed, just a small crack open, like someone hadn't bothered to shut it all the way. I remember noticing it because it made the hallway look darker. I'm playing pool by myself, lining up shots, doing that quiet little back and forth around the table. After a minute or so, I turned my head toward the bathroom again, and the door was almost wide open. My whole body went cold and buzzy at the same time, like a shock ran from my scalp straight down to my feet. It wasn't just fear. It was that weird physical reaction where your body decides you're in danger before your brain even catches up. I didn't stand there and reason with it. I didn't walk over and test for airflow. I didn't do anything logical. I flipped off the basement lights and bolted upstairs, straight to Toby, and hugged him like he was a life raft. And I know there are explanations. Air pressure, a draft, the house settling. Maybe the door just wasn't latched and it slowly crept open. I get it. I'm not claiming I saw a ghost in a top hat or anything. But the pattern of it all, the knocks right after I spoke, the VHS rewinding the second I walked past, the random marble appearing out of nowhere, that door opening while I'm completely alone down there. It's like the house is gently reminding me, hey, you're not the only one here. My family rolls their eyes when I mention it. Diane especially is very much a, there's a rational explanation for everything person, and I don't blame her. During the day, when the house is lively, people over, a game on TV, noise and laughter, I feel totally fine. It's when it's quiet, when I'm alone, when the house feels too still, and there are mirrors everywhere reflecting little slices of darkness back at me. Diane asked me to house sit again soon, and I'm going to do it. I'd never tell her no. But I'm really, really hoping the next day is one of those boring ones. No knocks, no rewinding tapes, no mystery marbles. Just me, Toby, and a peaceful night where the only thing watching me is a dog waiting for a snack. Okay, so I've been living in this genuinely gorgeous house in the US, the kind that makes you feel lucky every time you pull into the driveway. And yeah, the timing is bittersweet because I'm probably moving out soon. But here's the thing, this place has a history. I found out pretty early on that it had a reputation for paranormal activity. Like, people talked about it. And when we first moved in, it wasn't just rumors. It was active. Then it faded. And now, out of nowhere, it's creeping back in again. So let me set the scene. I moved in around early 2023 with my partner, Ethan, and 3 friends, Carter, Noah, and Lena. 5 of us total. Ethan and Noah were the skeptical types, the kind of guys who would roll their eyes and call everything drafts or old pipes or your imagination. Carter, Lena, and I, we were the ones who kept having experiences we couldn't explain. Also, this matters, the previous owner was an elderly woman who passed away. I never fully confirmed whether she died in the house, but I have a strong feeling she might have. And once you start connecting dots in a place like this, it's hard to unsee the pattern. When we first moved in, the activity came in waves. Voices, footsteps, random scents, like perfume one night, cigarette smoke another. And the weirdest part wasn't even the noises. It was the feel of the house shifting emotionally. Like you'd walk into a room and suddenly feel anxious, or sad, or watched, for no reason you could name. Anyway, I'll just tell you the moments that stuck with me the most, because even now, some of them make my stomach drop. The first big one happened one night in late winter, maybe February or March of 2023. Noah and Lena were out of town visiting family. Ethan was working a night shift about an hour away. Carter was asleep downstairs. His room was in the basement. So it was just me, alone on the main floor, scrolling on my phone in bed because I've always been a night owl. My bed shared a wall with the kitchen, and right on the other side of that wall was the top of the basement staircase. And that's where I heard it. 2 male voices, clear enough that I could tell they were talking to each other, but muffled enough that I couldn't understand the words. It sounded like an argument, but not angry exactly. More like tense. Then suddenly a weird little burst of laughter, like something about it was funny. I just laid there listening, trying to logic it out. But I knew who was in the house. I knew who wasn't. And there was absolutely no way it was any of my roommates. It went on for maybe 10 minutes, then died down. I didn't want to move, but I also didn't want to just lie there imagining the worst, so I got up and stepped into the hall. The living room and kitchen were pitch black, silent. I even whispered something like, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Like that would help. Nothing. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, just frozen. Then my nerves finally snapped, and I practically sprinted back into my room and climbed into bed like a kid. And then, like it was waiting for me to stop checking, the voices started again. Another 5 to 10 minutes. And when they stopped, I pulled the covers over my head and stayed that way until I fell asleep. The second one didn't happen to me. It happened to Carter. His bedroom was in the basement. Outside his door was this open family room type space with our instruments and a couple old pieces of furniture, including this antique bench that had belonged to someone in his family. He listened until it went quiet. And then, because he's braver than I am, he called out, like, "Hello?" Nothing. Then he said, clear as day, a voice called his name. "Carter." And right after that, like someone was trying to get his attention, the voice went, "Hey, listen to this." And then a guitar strummed loudly, hard, sharp, echoing, right there in the basement. Carter told me he just lay there and whispered, "Nope," and forced his eyes shut until he fell back asleep. When he told me the next morning, I got chills so fast I felt nauseous. I didn't go into the basement alone for days after that. The third one was Lena's, and it still freaks me out. She and Noah had the master bedroom. Lena didn't know much about the house's history when she moved in. She wasn't the kind of person who went searching for creepy details. But she started having dreams about an old woman. In one dream, the woman stood at the foot of the bed, just watching Lena and Noah sleep. In another, she was outside the bedroom window staring in, still, silent, like a painting. The next morning, Lena described her in detail. Hair, face, posture, clothing vibe, all of it. And the description matched an obituary photo of the previous owner, one we'd seen when we moved in, but Lena hadn't. Like, Lena hadn't even known what the woman looked like, and yet she described her so precisely that Ethan and I just looked at each other like, no way. The fourth one is, honestly, one of the creepiest for me, because it involved my cat. I have a cat named Miso, little bell on his collar, very dramatic, very needy, very follow you from room to room. One night in early summer of 2023, Ethan was working nights again. Noah and Lena were away for the weekend. Carter was asleep downstairs. So I was up alone in my room, door open, the only light in the whole house coming from my bedroom. I heard Miso's collar bell jingling out in the hall, and I didn't think anything of it. Cats do their weird nighttime laps, right? But then I heard a woman's voice, from somewhere down the hallway, call out softly, "Miso." And then again, "Miso." I went cold. Like my whole body just stopped. I stepped into the hall and called his name myself, trying to pretend I hadn't heard what I'd heard. And then Miso trotted toward me out of the darkness like he'd been summoned, like he'd been standing there waiting. I swear, in that moment, I felt this heavy awareness, like something was looking straight at me from the dark. I scooped him up, walked backward into my room, and shut the door. And then I sat there pretending my heart wasn't trying to climb out of my throat. The fifth one happened much later, like a year after the early chaos. By then, the activity had mostly calmed down. Every so often you'd hear something small, but nothing like those first months. One night I couldn't sleep, so I made a little nest on the couch, put on a movie, and Miso was curled up with me. Everything felt normal. And then he got up. He walked to the mouth of the hallway, sat down, and stared into the dark like he was locked onto something. I called his name, once, twice, a bunch of times. He didn't even flick an ear, just statue still, eyes fixed. That quiet, intense animal focus, it does something to you. It tells you, I'm not imagining this. I grabbed him, carried him down the hall, and went to bed. But I slept with the feeling that the house was listening. Carter also swore he saw this tall, shadow figure once, like a silhouette with a hat, either framed in his doorway or near the bottom of the stairs. I know that sounds like the classic Hat Man story, but the way he described it, he wasn't joking. Okay, now here's where things shift. Fast forward to fall 2025. The house is quiet in a different way now, because the friend group kind of collapsed. There were messy fallouts. Noah and Lena broke up and moved out. Carter crossed some serious lines and got kicked out. It got ugly. By the time things finally settled, it was just me and Ethan living there. Two people in an almost empty house. Ethan switched careers and started doing healthcare IT, and he turned Carter's old basement bedroom into his office. Most of the rooms are empty now. No clutter, no roommates, no constant noise. Just our bedroom, the office, and long, quiet stretches of hallway. And that's when the activity started creeping back in. I've been hearing footsteps in the hallway some nights. Slow pacing, like someone walking up and down. Sometimes I hear it when I'm in bed. Sometimes when I'm in the bathroom, which sits right in the middle of the hall, so it feels uncomfortably close. And a few times a month, I wake up between 1 and 4 a.m. with that unmistakable feeling that someone is in the room watching me sleep. Not angry, not comforting, just neutral. Like I'm being observed, studied. It's such a strange energy, almost clinical. But the biggest thing lately has been Miso. Ever since the master bedroom became empty, like truly empty, he's been obsessed with it. At first I thought he missed Noah and Lena's cat because the two cats were attached. But Miso's fixation didn't fade. It got worse. He cries to go in there daily. Not playful cries, insistent, urgent, like he needs access. One night, I made the stupid decision to sit in that empty master bedroom with him in the dark, just to see what he'd do. He walked into the middle of the room, sat down, and started looking upward, left, then right, like he was tracking two tall shapes standing over him, like he was watching people move. My skin crawled. I got up, scooped him, and left. And ever since that night, I've refused to let him in there. I avoid the room. I keep the door shut. But he still cries for it like it's calling him. So yeah, it's mid-December 2025 now, and I don't know why the activity comes and goes like this. Part of me wonders if all the toxic energy from the roommates, constant tension, constant drama, kept whatever's here kind of buried. And now that the house is empty and calmer, it has space to breathe again. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe whatever's here notices the quiet, notices the change, notices me. I don't know. But I'll tell you this, living in a beautiful house that sometimes feels like it's holding its breath, it changes the way you sleep. It changes the way you listen to silence. And honestly, I'd love to know what you think, because at this point, I'm not trying to prove anything. I just want to understand what kind of place I've been living in